Alchemize your energy. Darling, let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. Alchemize your energy, my friend. Let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, we will always take flight. Keep on pushing through the darkness of night. There's no limit, let's reach for the sky. Shine so bright, from darkness to light. I love who I am. I'm loving me. Look in the mirror, unapologetically. Love what I see. Love who I am. I am invincible. I am a fan. My curves and my features, God makes no mistakes. I am successful. I am what it takes. I'm bulletproof. I'm 100 proof, and I love who I see. Because I'm living my truth. I'm invincible. I'm incredible. A star in the making. I reach past the clouds. I'm invincible. I'm incredible. And no one can stop me. Can stop me now. I'm invincible.
of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEMia, whose image is the most beautiful Whoopi Goldberg. Shout out to all my Babel builders in the building. Remember, if you are listening to this, together we are Babel. Let's build. Got a special guest for y'all today. We got DJ Genesis in the building. DJ Genesis is in the building. How you doing today, sis?
Thank you. Hey, can you hear me good?
Yeah, definitely. Great audio. Great audio. Definitely. As y'all can see from the title, we're gonna definitely be getting into our roots. We talk about our roots. We know that we know a lot of our roots come out of Ifa, and from there we can see different forms of Ifa also created by us here, you know, to adapt to the conditions and the situations that we were put into here. But you can always see the strong connection that goes back to it being African spirituality. So we just want to get a basis for that. We are talking to an initiate, so this is definitely a blessed opportunity for us to get a lot of knowledge. And I'm gonna shut up, man. I'm gonna get out of the way and let the sis do her thing. Yeah, so how you want to start? You want to go ahead and start sharing your screen? You want to introduce yourself first?
Well, I want to introduce myself first. My
Okay,
name
perfect.
is so I go by Alchemizing Energy, aka DJ Genesis Detroit. I used to DJ a long time ago in the you know, and I was brought up in the Pan-African community, you know, in Washington D.C. I used to be a dancer, African like dancer, you know, learning Guinea dance, Senegalese dance, all the different, like, you know, Guinea, all the different dances, all the different drum patterns. So I didn't even realize that, like, that it was going to be a calling later on in my life to get into this, but it was always ingrained within me, just being in DC, part of that Pan-African community. And as time went on, you know, being a house DJ, being like kind of, I would always be really attracted to Afro-Cuban beats, India, La India, Masters at Work. You know, these were Afro-Cuban people, and they would be doing like or playing like doing Orisha songs, and I'd be, you know, DJing, playing these records, and not even realizing that these are Orisha, like calling Oshun. You know, there's a song by Masters at Work, La India Convo, that is actually prayer to Oshun, La Ferefum, Shango, and she goes into talking about you know, Oshun and different Orishas, you know. So that was my introduction, and I didn't even realize I was being introduced. There was a drummer in Detroit when I moved to Detroit called Craig Huckabee, and a lot of times when I would like do songs, he'd be playing Orisha music, Orisha Congo beats to my actual produced records, and I had no idea. Like I knew he dressed in white. I knew he had these interesting beads on. I know he played the Congo drum, and I would just have him every time I would come out with a release. He'd be playing the bata as well as other like Orisha like based like drums, African spiritual drums during on my records, and I had no idea that this was like a whole thing, right? So fast forward, you know, I start working for SETI. Sarah SETI, as his web developer. You know, what happened is that, you know, I was watching a lot of like Sandra TV, and we were seeing him debating a bunch of different people. And me and a girl, I was actually, her name was Rachel, aka Ifa. She actually named herself Ifa, right? And I would go to her house all the time, and she actually was my beginning into like learning about African spirituality. Being a Christian at first, I began to like, you know, kind of, you know, get introduced into African spirituality, and she would do different things, and we'd go to her house, and she might go up underneath the tree and give offering and different things like that. And I didn't really know what was going on, just thinking, okay, well, she's really into, you know, like she's just a spiritual person. I'm not even realizing that I am like being slowly brought into African spirituality. So what happened is that me and Rachel got on the phone with Sarah SETI, and we were watching him on YouTube one day, and we're like, man, you need to stop debating. We said, SETI, you need to like actually start teaching. Fuck all this debating and stuff like that. Just start teaching. And that was the beginning of him beginning to tour around the country and start teaching instead of just debating on Sandra. Because we got on the phone with him. Listen, don't debate no more. All right. And we said, F YouTube, create your own platform. So I was the web developer for SETI for like 3-4 years. He actually, you know, my daughter was like about 1 year old when I first met him. And then I ended up, my child's father, about 10 from Slum Village. He was in a group called Slum Village, Jay Dilla, all that stuff. He ended up passing away. And so I ended up leaving Detroit and moving down to Dallas, Texas. And I was still doing SETI's website, and we got infiltrated by somebody who ended up convincing us to move everything from the server we had that was overseas to a server he had in Los Angeles. The guy actually named himself Mike Hayden. I didn't know who Mike Hayden was. I should have known this was like a weird like infiltration, but nevertheless, he convinced us to like move it to this place, you know, somewhere in Los Angeles, and basically then disappeared. We lost the whole website, all the content on it, and it just went down, you know.
Wow.
And that was like the start. Sandra began to then work with me on something. Sarah then began to work with young Pharaoh. So I was no longer doing his website after that. We did try to rev it back up again, but it was so much work that went into it. Was called Black Power Cartel. That was the website. And he, you know, if anybody knows SETI, he talked about, you know, Dr. Yusuf bin Yakanan, Dr. Clark. He had all the videos on that website. I mean, he had that website. It was so much knowledge. And I did 2 of his websites, African Glory, which was an actual place that you can get all the content. And then he had Black Power Cartel, which showed his lectures. And then it was opening up to different people to actually show their lectures as well. And then we was getting like almost millions of views on that particular website. And then when they infiltrated us, whoever that was, I'm not sure who it was, they took the whole thing down. It was destroyed. So just to get that much energy back, I just kind of, man, it was just a sad day. So now, just for me being around study, I started to get really into the Egyptian, Kemet, you know, the Kushites, all that stuff. I even was working towards going over to Kemet at one point with trying to reach out to Ashra Crazy. Nonetheless, we actually lived in Dallas. So it was interesting when I actually moved down to Dallas, you know, I was still into the Kemet, you know, and things like that. What ended up being a switch is that him and young Pharaoh got together, and then they began to do a thing called that the metal netter have not been translated. And so
yeah, deciphered. Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, what? Because I'm Kemet, you know what I'm saying? I'm all about Kemet. I'm learning about the Kushites and Ethiopia and Sudan, and I'm all about Kush, you know what I'm saying? So I'm learning all this stuff, and now you're saying that this hasn't been deciphered. What? So it was a woman by the name of Akia Ma'at who actually introduced me, because I said, you know, it's crazy because now I feel lost because everything I had was banking on Kemet. You know what I'm saying? I was, you know, from going to Christianity, because I didn't like grow up Christian. When I was 13, I like actually chose myself to get baptized. My mother didn't like tell me I had to be a certain religion or raise me a certain way in any certain religion, because my mom herself was, I believe that she was a spiritual person, you know, and probably until she, I think they so-called saved her or whatever when she passed away. When I was 14, they said, well, she accepted Jesus Christ at the end. But up until that point, you know, she didn't go to church with me. She allowed me to go to different churches. Honey, I've been to Jehovah's Witness churches. She allowed me to go to so many different, like, churches, you know, and Christian things, you know, from the Mormons. She let the Mormons pick me up. I've been to Pentecostal, you know, where they had me in a room and was trying to force me to speak in tongues. Like they'd have me pray. I was like about 10 years old at this point. Because you know, when I was a kid, they'd me on the different, they'd pick the kids up and take them to different churches. You know, and I think that was for my parents to get like a little babysitter, take them to different churches at that time.
Right.
So I'm at the Mormon church. I'm at Jehovah's Witness church. I'm at the Spanish church. I'm at the the Pentecostal church. I done got tried to force to speak in tongues. Didn't happen, you know. And so with the Bible study, all that stuff, you know, my mom didn't go, but she sent me, you know, and I'm thankful for that because I was able to. When I turned 13, I went and got baptized on my own, not through her forcing, but just like, okay, well, I feel like this might be the thing, you know what I'm saying? So I went ahead and got baptized at 13, and after that, you know, something happened where I actually was working with these guys that were actually atheists, because they were really, me being a software engineer, you know, they would come to my house, we'd be talking about different stuff. And one of the guys was like, so you're a Christian? Yeah. And they began to question certain stuff, and I didn't have the answer to it, you know? So that was kind of like how I got introduced into, you know, what happened is that Akia, when they said that the metal netter had not been whatever, so I'm not Christian no more, and now I'm into the Kushites and the Egyptians and blah, 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 blah. And now, oh, it's never been whatever. So I'm like, what is that about? What are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? So then she says, okay, well, you probably need to talk to a Babalawo. You need to like look into this, right? So I get my first reading. And I'm gonna tell you what, I did the reading, and then there was a sacrifice done. And it was the weirdest thing. When he did the sacrifice, it seemed like a beam of light came through my window. Because it was dark outside, the sun shined through my window. It was the craziest thing I ever experienced in myself. You know what? I think I'm in the right place. And that was my initial introduction into what I'm doing now. He was a Sheshe, he was out of Nigeria, and he was the person that initiated her into Oshun. So I wanted to give that introduction into like just initially how I got into it. And then now I want to like show, I want to like just give just show this video of Baba Oba, who is an Oba Oriate. Now, Oba Oriates are the ones that know all the songs, all the stories in the tradition. So they're called the master of ceremony.
Oh, that's deep.
All right,
So that's where we get that from in hip hop, right?
Yeah, so Oba Oriates are the master of ceremony. They know all the stories and everything like that. So this is like where he talks right here is the importance of ancestral worship. So let's get into it.
Religions are based on ancestral worship. All religions. Before we get into the structure of religion, let's begin by looking at the productive value of worshiping ancestors. Any task which requires trial and error will most definitely appreciate experience as a guide. For example, if two men have never seen or heard of a cliff, approach a cliff while exploring, one of the men is not careful and slips and falls down the cliffs and perishes. The other man is directly affected and will be alive to tell the dangers of a cliff in the story of the unfortunate man. This serves well to highlight mankind's achievements and failures of our predecessors. For indigenous societies, it is imperative in transferring knowledge as a means of immortality and morality. As we examine major religion and its prophets, we see Abraham as an ancestor in the literal or metaphoric sense. The same can be said about Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha. If they were alive and died, they are now, in fact, ancestors and are being idolized. The canonization of saints is ancestral worship practice as well. The altar stone of all Catholic cathedrals contain a piece of bone from the saint which the church is dedicated. However, we will revisit this topic of necromancy later on in this discussion. All rituals are laid down by ancestors. The ritual may be a memory to a formula, like the famous rain dance performed by Native Americans. I say formula because it is indeed one. Pollen, dust, and smoke are combined to create change in the ions within the atmosphere, causing rain clouds. This is an example where the magical becomes scientific. The ritual memory has been passed down orally and intergenerationally and can only be credited to the ancestors. So when we talk about all religions are practicing ancestral worship, it is just that. If you are a devout Christian and you believe that Jesus Christ was alive and was crucified for his beliefs and for who he was as the Son of God, then you are worshiping an ancestor. The same goes for Muhammad, Abraham, or any of the major religions, the prophets. They are all said to have lived and died. And so we are semantically worshiping ancestors. So all religion is based on ancestral worship. You cannot get around it. Your ancestral, right, is the charting of the people before you. And you get here because of their deeds, directly because of their deeds. If your great-great-grandfather doesn't inseminate a particular woman, you don't have the genes that you have today. So these people are directly they are directly connected to our present day. Their past makes for our present, and our present makes for our children's future. So ancestral worship is the basis of man's intrinsic need to figure out where he came from. Because in terms of you looking to find out who was your great grandfather and who begot him and so on and so forth, at a certain point, the first human being, then asks himself, well, where did I come from? Who are my ancestors? And who are their ancestors? And so this is the internal search for God, that man, as the creature who thinks about things outside of food, clothing, and shelter, we are civilized and we want to know where we came from. And so this is inseparable from the concept of God. You cannot think about God without having ancestral worship, because God is intrinsically the ancestor, because it's who you came from, right? And so it would be foolish to say that one is worshiping one's ancestors. It would be foolish to use that as a derogatory point of perspective. It is necessary for one to worship one's ancestors so that one does not befall the same woes and complications and obstacles that our ancestors or those before us suffered through. So they, in fact, go through the obstacle so that we are later prepared for that obstacle, and that obstacle just becomes a bump in the road. So that we here today are on a camera and talking to one another because of what our ancestors did. We may have advanced the camera, but the concept of the camera was given to us by someone who was in fact by this time dead. And so it is foolish to think that one could actually have the ideal or the idea, I should say, to think about God without thinking about where he came from. The effects of ancestral veneration are the invisible connections to all things, so that when you become conscious enough to accept that your ancestors are living through you and you are nothing more than the continuation of another story, when you come to that conclusion, you will understand that in everything being connected, if you pay it back, it pays it forward. So, because your ancestors are betting on you, the people before you are betting on you. A whole tribe may be in the hands of one person. So I'll give an example. I myself are one of the last of my surname. I have another cousin who has the last name as well. He's much older than I am, and he has no children. So my entire ancestral court is mounting behind the two of us in order for them to survive. Because if he and I die, there are no more of us. And so it is integral that they make it that they create a peaceful environment in the future for me to create some sort of success so that they are not forgotten. So even if I don't have children, I have a book. And so the book will have my name on it and the name will carry on, but we will not be of the flesh, right? And so your ancestors are, in order for them to survive, they are looking for you to procreate. And so the effects of them are for them to provide blessing and fortune for you in this reality so that they can hopefully return in another reality in the same flesh. Now, possession. We're going to talk about possession and what is the purpose of possession. And possession is the evidence that the dead are among us. It is the phenomena of consciousness being able to co-opt flesh and direct that flesh in the memory that this spirit can remember to deal with this mechanism called our body, this mechanical vessel. So the spirit, the phenomena of this is the idea that consciousness is one thing and flesh is another. And the consciousness can, in fact, crack the code of the flesh and control the flesh. And one consciousness is not singular to a body. So that we understand that in initiation, one gives forth space in his psyche for another consciousness to exist in order to communicate with this reality. So in the Lukumi traditions or Yoruba traditions, the Egun is referred to as, or is used as an euphemism to insinuate a horse, in that the Orisha are mounting you like a stallion so that they may travel from a distance from their reality to ours. And in doing so, they are passing messages from the other side. Now, without initiation, possession is possible. This is due to a fragile psyche. So people who have been in traumatic situations where they've had to disengage from their body in order to deal with the shock of what the body may be experiencing, these people have the ability to disengage from the flesh for a moment so that they don't feel what's happening to the flesh. And in that, other consciousnesses that are around that may be intelligent will take advantage. And these entities will use the flesh, and they will figure out the code of the flesh, and then they will begin to control the flesh. So when we talk about people with multiple personality disorders, this is a person who not only is conversing with spirits, but spirits are now just taking over. The person is not present within the body. They may be a layer or two away from the actual flesh, close enough to like a moon in orbit. And so they necessarily will give off the impression that it's the person, and this other consciousness will then come into play. And this other consciousness will control the body and will control the flesh. And so there are times when people wake up in the precinct and they don't know how they ended up there because they've committed heinous acts that they would not be able to even face. But another consciousness has come upon them and co-opted their flesh, and they are now left with the reality of the consequences of this other consciousness, right? So what happens is,
and I want to stop it right there. I want to talk about this, right? Let's talk about possession. So you can actually, like, have you ever heard of a person that get into a fight and they say that they blacked out, right? That is a form of possession. Okay? That they could, like, a person could just be beaten on somebody, black out, and not remember what happened. That's a form of possession. You know, whatever gets into them, and they wake up and they look down like, oh my God, what did I just do, right? So, and that person has a certain weakness of the spirit of violence, right? The same thing can happen, like if you get raped, Graped, right? If you get raped, you know, you could that's why certain people might get into, like, I would say I've heard stories of people that's in the lifestyle, right? And they could be with multiple men and they will blank out and they'll zoom out. And some people will notice that and stop it because okay, this person is not even here anymore. That's a form of possession. That means that whatever that entity is now embodying that person, and they're not even there, and their body is being taken advantage of. And that's probably because of the past trauma that have happened to them. So whether it's violence, whether it's sexual, whether it's whatever, a lot of possessions happen. Now in the church, right, there is possession, right? Especially in Pentecostal. That's when I talk about where when I was a kid, they were trying to get me to get possessed by my mom sent me to this Pentecostal church when I was about 8 years old. And they told me, they kept saying, speak in tongues, right? So they said, speak in tongues, right? So they told me to say hallelujah over and over again. And I guess eventually just by saying hallelujah, whatever would come down into my subconscious mind would just would just be saying hallelujah over and over again. And whatever entity or whatever spirit was going to come, the Holy Spirit that they call, would come into my subconscious mind and then possess me. And that's why they say even in the Bible that when a person speaks in tongues, there's supposed to be somebody there to interpret it because they are being possessed by a spirit. You're not supposed to just be, sometimes you'll hear a person and so and hum chalabosha, and they all sound like they say hashala or whatever. Now I don't know what that is, but in reality, what's supposed to be there is when that person says ham shalabosha, there's supposed to be somebody else there to say this person saying that, right? Now in Lukumi and also Vodun and various African things, which is really where they get this from, the person itself talks to the people and say, hey, You know what I'm saying? When that possession happens in the religion, they will tell that possessed person will be going up to people saying, "This is what you need to you need to go whatever's wrong, whatever you gotta fix." They will come out and be like, whatever that Shango come down, whoever it is that come down, they will come and tell you, if you listen, you got something, you need to take care of that, whatever, you know, woo, 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 you know what I'm saying? And when you do it's called a Misa. Sometimes it's not necessarily a possession that will happen, but you will, like, one time I went to a Misa for the first time and didn't know what it was. They lit a candle and had a glass of water, and his book is called A Glass of Water and a Candle. The lady was sitting in the middle, and they told us, listen, if your ears get to ringing, you need to, like, say whatever it is, the message that gets told to you, or you're gonna get a headache. Because it's like it's gonna mess you. Have to, that something's coming to you. You need to say whatever it is. And I had that happen. And then at some point, my friend who actually had like this, she had like a thing on her chest that someone had gave her, like a pouch, you know, that had like some kind of like witchcraft type of stuff in it. And it something came down to where she had to take that thing off. And whatever it was, came down. I started vomiting. This one lady started screaming. Everybody in the whole place was crying. It was crazy. And it was like, what is that around your neck? Take that off. You know what I'm saying? And so whatever spirit came down, got into the lady, and she says, take that thing up off your neck. And then they had to like go and do away with it, because I guess whatever it was controlling her. You know what I'm saying? So are you talking? If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. My fault.
So possession happens in several different ways. It happens in the Christian church. I haven't been at a Muslim mosque before and seen it, but it happens in Hinduism. It happens in various different religions, you know, including Christianity. A lot in Christianity. I'm not sure about Judaism. I've never been to a synagogue and seen it, you know, to see it with my own two eyes. But this happens. So a lot of times people say, "Oh, you're talking about getting possessed. It's an evil spirit coming down." Well, how do you know that spirit's coming down and the church is not an evil spirit that's doing all that, that's dancing and dancing around? You know what? How do you know the difference, right? In this, we can recognize Shango. We know that Shango by his accent, by how he talks, everything. But when you go into a church situation where possession is considered demonic, how do you know when the person catches the so-called Holy Spirit that it is actually a Holy Spirit? How do you know that's not a possession of Shango or any other Orisha that comes down and hits you people? And then why are you not following the Bible where it says that when people speak in tongues, that you're supposed to have an interpreter there, you know? But I'm not gonna like really get too hard on the Bible and how people are like really doing stuff in Christianity. But because of the fact that I've been in various different churches and seen actual possession happen, and after I like have gotten into this and knowing now that is possession, it's interesting like to see the contrast and how they like want to make the African thing demonic, but then over here they're doing the same thing. Why is one thing good and the other thing not? You know. So, but I want.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna give you an answer to that, right? Because this is the hypocritical part, right? It's not that you can't ancestor worship, right? They even even when you go into the New Testament, they have what they call Abraham's bosom, right? Where they say that once the people who pass, that's where they reside at, is inside of Abraham's bosom. And then you see it multiple times also. You've seen it multiple times where they venerated somebody, even them using the Urim and the Thurim as a form to communicate. So the problem comes in that is biblically, or the contradiction is, y'all, YHWH is cool with you doing that as long as you do it to him. If you do it to to other deities or such and such, or outside of it, then it's an issue. And the problem, I think, what happens is, or what we're looking at is that these different religions want you to set your ancestry aside and take on theirs. But I'll digress with that.
When people are in traumatic situations, when they are faced with fear, and fear is a different thing than being scared. When someone is scared, you're frightened for a moment. But when you are in fear, fear sometimes mortifies people. It keeps them frozen. And certain situations with the flesh is being, if it's being stimulated in a negative manner, and it is too much for the person to bear, they may necessarily, when they talk about people passing out from shock, there are times when other consciousnesses will come in and take over, because those consciousnesses are not connected to the body the same way that we are. So while they're in control of the flesh, the nerve endings in the body are not connected to them. And so they don't feel pain. And so these entities can do supernatural things because they don't respect the laws of reality in the confines in which we are trapped in. And so they allow themselves to understand physics, and they allow themselves to conduct miracles or just supernatural feats. These are some of the signs that we or symptoms that we understand when someone is possessed. When you have a child, and it takes 5 adults to hold the child down. The child doesn't logically have the strength to hold all 5 people, but this other consciousness, which has co-opted the flesh, doesn't respect that. It doesn't know that the body could break or has limits, and so it takes the body to limits that the body is challenged to. And so in some of these symptoms of possession, we find people like doing just supernatural things, eating glass, bending metal, impervious to fire, right? These are symptoms of possession, and also indicators from the consciousness that has co-opted the body to express to us in this reality that they're not from here, okay? And these supernatural feats are real. I have seen them. People eat glass. People play with fire and not be burned. Now, there are negative consciousnesses and positive consciousnesses, meaning that these negative consciousnesses are attracted to certain stimuli, pain, sorrow, different degrees of lust. These entities are charged and they feed off this energy because there is an energy in those emotions. And so, because we're talking about emotions, energy and motion, so these emotions charge up these consciousnesses. And so people have these bites where they lose consciousness. They don't remember 3 or 4 days because they were somebody else. We find alcohol as one of the keys to possession. Alcohol, this is why in the old world, alcohol was referred to wine and spirits. The chemical compounds of the alcohol weaken the flesh. And in weakening the flesh, it allows the proper consciousness of the body to disengage from the body and other entities or conscious beings to come in and manipulate the flesh. So that in times of celebration, you go out and you hanging out, you partying with the people, and you have somebody get drunk, and they go through these stages. So like in the beginning, they drunk and they become confessional. They want to tell what they did, and it's literally the other consciousnesses around them judging their behavior. And then they get into a belligerent stage, and then they get into a stage where they're just out of control. And these are like nag spirits that are around the person. They're not educated. They have no sense of physics. Then you have the possession of people who are initiates, who make a treaty with a specific entity, and this entity is given the proverbial code to your flesh. And the flesh and the entity come to an agreement, and in this agreement, they make a pact so that only this entity may enter the flesh in specific times. And the triggers for this are rhythmic through music, certain patterns, certain songs, certain cadences, certain sounds that trigger memories to wake that consciousness up within the body to take charge. And so in initiation, these entities make sure that no other entities are allowed to enter the body.
All right, so let's talk about it. Possession.
I want to just tap in on one part. I have witnessed. Now I told you about my cousin and the some of the videos. He told me some of the videos where some of the people that initiated him was on fire and didn't get burned. Also, the eating of the glass and multiple other things. Also, I've seen. So I just definitely wanted to be a witness to that.
Right. So all right, so let me just give you an example. So that
And your name is?
Sorry about that. That is the Maria Leonza called out of Venezuela. Now they deal with some pretty intense spirits out there, right? The drumming is fast, everything is fast, and like the type of energies that they conjure up with the drums, man, you know what I'm saying? You see them like taking razor blade, cutting their tongue with it, you know, and then I guess then they begin to talk to whatever the spirit is, but they want blood. They want the blood of the person, right? Now, Orisha is not as violent as some of these other traditions that are in Latin America, but there are some traditions that are very, even in Africa, that can get kind of crazy where they're like, they might like take a sword and try to cut themselves and can't. They could like take a knife and like take their eyelid and rub it across and it will not cut them. So that is possession, right? And that happens in Lukumi, it happens in Isheshe, it happens in Voodoo, it happens in Palo Mayombe. So, but it maybe not to that extent. That I'm just showing you an example of what happens in that. The stuff that happens in the Orisha ceremonies, they're normally, at tambours are more, they're more private. They don't really film those things. But I wanted to show you like that from Venezuela. But like I said, they're dealing with very hot spirits. And so those spirits can be very like scary. and even with Shango, like they'll get, Shango or certain spirits come down, and it could be kind of scary depending on who come down. You know what I'm saying? If you get an Egun spirit, it might come down and it might be kind of frightening. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what spirit it is, So possession does happen in these things. It's no different than the possession that happens in Christianity. So let me just show you another thing. Okay, let's go under her.
The common word for the ability to see spirits is referred to as clairvoyance. People who are clairvoyant have the ability to actually see entities. They see the residue of a past life as it travels or it hovers and orbits in in a living person's aura. Sometimes these people see these spirits in projections, maybe of a time past. It's almost like how a picture captures a moment and then articulates it through light, through different points of light, and then together they recreate this moment. This goes into the concept of what I talk about in the book about the eye. The human eye is one of the first cameras. We capture information. Now you don't see with your eyes. Your eyes are an instrument that allow you to collect information for your environment, so that those who are gifted with clairvoyance, a lot of times you will see that these people have wide opening eyes. They're able to capture in more light than you and I. They're able to see different colors as they exist beyond just what we know the bands of light to be. Clairvoyance is a gift and a curse, like some of these gifts. They all have two sides to them, and so it is a lifelong journey for the clairvoyant to learn how to turn this off so that they can maintain a physical existence without being burdened with having to see spirits all the time in every place. After clairvoyance, we have what people call clairaudience, right? Or audio clairant. And these are people who hear spirits. They hear the voice of a different consciousness whispering or even mumbling to them certain truths. This is a gift and a curse as well, because it becomes a struggle for the clairaudient or the audio clairant to maintain his own thoughts, right? In the last episode, we talked about self-inventory and how important it is even to be able to recognize spirit, because you have to know what it is that who you are and what your thoughts are, so that you're clear that when you have invading information or opinions entering your psyche, that these are coming from an outside source. So the clairaudient, the person who hears spirits, is a messenger. They relay what they hear. After the clairaudient, we have the intuitive. The intuitive person has the most arduous journey of all of the mystics, because the intuition can be sometimes vague, and in its inability to be specific, it creates a lot of doubt, and so the person may go through different emotional changes when dealing with this gift that can become a curse to a person. So someone who's intuitive has a feeling, but they don't have a specific understanding of what that feeling entails. And this will put the person that has the intuition in a very precarious position, because they get a premonition, but it's not anything that explains what is the danger. They have a feeling. And in this feeling, they tell you, listen, don't go outside yet, but you got to go to work. And you're like, look, come on, what's the problem? I don't know what it is. Don't go outside. Only if the person goes outside and meets the tragedy are they confirmed in their intuition. And so it's a bittersweet paradox where you don't want to be right, but you also have to have some sort of context of exactness to this feeling. So the person, they negate, don't worry about it, I'll be fine. They leave, they go outside, they get in the car gets up to the block, it gets hit by a bus or a truck, and the person dies. Or maybe they don't, maybe they're just severely injured, right? Now this person's intuition becomes relevant because now they have an experience that they can attach it to. Like, listen, I had a feeling, and then John left the house, and then he got hit by a truck. So now, through trial and error, the person will understand this gift based on the tragedies that they have witnessed and have been signaled or affected as a prelude to the actual event. And so this makes the person somewhat bitter because they become resentful for this gift because they don't want to know, right? And sometimes they don't. It's the worst part is to have such an information but be unable to change a series of events. And this is a part of what we have to do in terms of finding our truth. And this is all back to self-inventory. You cannot conceive the gift. You don't understand it because it comes at a cost. And so the gift is, or the talent is wasted if the person is not channeled into some form of mysticism that allows them to use these gifts for the greater community. So this trial and error, you go through where you heard the spirit say something, you relayed the information to the person didn't adhere to the information or the advice. They met with a tragic or an obstacle that you have already prophesied. This is where the fear comes in. This is where people, they would rather not know. People like to be without any consequence or they don't want to have any guilt or responsibility to anything. And so a lot of times this is how we have witch hunts, because somebody was prophesizing, don't do this. And then when people went ahead and did it and they had no one to blame, then they blamed the prophet. You told us this was happening, this witchcraft. And then here we are. So trial and error is a real thing in spiritualism, in all forms of spiritualism, because you have to have evidence that the prophecy is correct. And usually the prophecy comes more direct when it deals with things of tragedy and situations of despair, right? And so how do you recognize that you have these gifts? Well, if you see something that nobody else sees, I mean, there's not really much for us to debate about. What do you see? If you're able to describe it and it resonates with someone, like that you can actually see an ancestor, you can see somebody in their family line that is walking with them, and you describe them to the person and they've never showed you a photo, this will give you an understanding that your vision is quite correct. The same with the audio clarion or the clairaudient. The person who hears things will only have the evidence of the prophecy coming true to have evidence that they are having a true audio clarion experience. Like I said, the intuitive person has the one of the most debilitating gifts, because there is no specificity in the prophecy. It is a feeling, and it's only through trial and error that once you had the feeling happen more than once that you can recognize that the consequences of the events that ensued afterwards were contingent on the feelings you had. Then you will have some sort of evidence. The last dream, one of the it's not the last gift, but another gift that one may necessarily be bestowed with is dreams. And dreams are very malleable. They are subject to many different things: what you ate, where you are, the amount of sleep that you've had, or the amount of work that you have. All of these strenuous things contribute to the ability to actually traverse the dream world. And so the dreamer has the best advice for a dreamer that I can advise is that one would get a book and find different methods of thought in terms of how to catch dreams. This is why the Native Americans give us a dream catcher to put up behind our bed so that we catch the dreams and we understand them and we can decipher them. The other part about the dreams is this deciphering of it. So, but the most important part is the memory. So you want to have a book next to the bed, so that when you have a profound dream, before you put your feet on the ground, that you grab your book and you write the most profound things that you remember of the dream, right? And the dream will reveal itself over time and over consequence, so that over some time, if you've been having these dreams and you've seen these people and they're giving you these messages, and the information does not surface or does not come to fruition until a year later, you have it written down as your prophecy is being evident. The other part is that the dreams sometimes come encoded. So sometimes they are backwards, or they are an allegory of what is happening in the real world. And so one thing I want people to understand, and I've expressed this in other episodes, is that it is not the duty or the function of deity or spirits to actually inform us. They are going against company rules when they give us information. They are to guide us, but we have free will. And so in having free will, they are not supposed to intervene. And so when they do, they give us these riddles to ensure that we have a heads up to the obstacle course ahead of us. Excuse me. It is very important that when we're talking about spirits, we understand that they speak in riddles, and sometimes the dreams are upside down and backwards. And so it takes a trial and error for the dreamer to have a clear perspective or comprehension or interpretation of the dream. And this is why I said these gifts come with a curse. People who dream tend to, after the dream, be quite stressed and worried about how true the dream is going to come to pass, and what were the symbols and the significance of the dream. Now, the benefits of the dreamers is the dreamers get to play. They're good at gambling when picking numbers. There are some spirits that, if you find a good spirit that can prophesize or foresee the lotto number, people have maintained themselves with spirits as such, where they have the number in the dream and then they go and play the number. Or the audio client portion hears the spirit and the spirit tells them to play this number. And so that you will find that most mystics, a lot of times, in order to really truly survive, they gamble, as they are clerics and don't have the time to devote to a career and to do spiritual work. So they rely on the spirits to capture luck in their favor. Okay. Another gift that is also a spiritual gift, and is not something that just anyone can learn, is divination. Everyone is not gifted to pull tarot. Everyone is not gifted to understand the decadence of the astrological wheel. Everyone is not blessed or gifted to be an herbalist. Everyone is not gifted to be a Reiki specialist in different things. And so divination is actually a gift. It is the ability for someone to interpret a series of probable chances that are expressing themselves or surfacing in this diagnosis of a person. There are some people who I've seen read tea leaves. Divination is a gift. It is attached to clairaudience, clairvoyance, intuition. It is attached to these things. And so this is all part of the gifts that mysticism and spiritualism cultivate, so that people are at their best when doing or performing such gifts. Finding your truth and self-inventory. We talked about self-inventory in another episode, and finding your truth. And in order to do that, one must accept that you know nothing. You must come into this arena of philosophy and tradition knowing that you are a fool. Because in order to understand when entering through this, and it is not your indoctrinated culture, you must accept the fact that you know nothing. And so it takes the ability to brainwash oneself in order to be re-educated or reprogrammed. And so there is a great gold rush to spirituality right now on the internet. And everybody has all of the academic and the scholastic information, but they don't have the ritual knowledge. And it is unfortunate, but we here at Omidina, we are giving out the basic fundaments. So understand that if you have one of these gifts, how can you now exercise these gifts? And again, it requires a congregation, a community. It requires other spiritualists. So that you might not even speak your truth, but you might hear someone else speak the same truth that you've already heard. Right? And this gives confidence. Confidence, the root word confide, the ability to confide in something, to open up and to tell the truth. Right? And so confidence is the ability to understand your truth, knowing your truth. This is what confidence is. Right? I know that I can't dunk the ball. I'm clear about that, but I've developed another shot and I'm good at it. And so I'm confident at that shot. I am not confident. I've confided in myself that I am not able to do that feat, right? This is knowing my truth. This is me dealing with what it is that I came to do.
All right, so I wanted to show that, like, just to give an idea of like different gifts that people have. Like, so when you go to a Christian church, the first thing they do when you say, okay, I want to go up and get baptized, or I want to go up and join the church, is they find out what your spiritual gifts are. Same thing in Isheshe, same thing in Lukumi. But I did want to show you this just to give some clarity. So just watch this real quick.
Tell me why you're afraid when you see this, or you see something evil, but not when you see this. And tell me why this seems so strange and foreign to you. Why don't you see yourself in this video? But this seems so familiar. See, no matter how far removed we are, or how many lies we were told to demonize our true spiritual practices, our ancestors held on to us and refused to let go. And one of us returns to them and pay honor to them. They dance and rejoice in Oru.
Ashe. So that is, that's Isheshe. She was initiated in Nigeria. She went to Nigeria to be initiated, and I went to Cuba. So let's talk about why is Cuba? People.
And the name was given to the island by influence.
So let's talk about the African Latino aspect of it, right? So basically what ended up happening is that, through the slave trade, there were different ports, right? Cuba being one of them, and then the Canary Islands, right? There's a whole thing that happened with the slave trade that brought this religion over here, right? The initial religion being Isheshe, and then it being brought into Cuba. So let's talk about that.
Of these Congolese travelers. So now Africa having its name from a Roman conqueror, right? Yeah. Cuba is ethereally like Wakanda.
True. I feel like that too.
Right?
No, I feel Black Power like one.
Yo, everywhere you go, like remember even the murals that we were seeing, like everywhere you go in Cuba is black.
Yeah.
Like the essence of it is like, just for like an African American person who the only time we really see ourselves is in slave shit, you know what I'm saying? But to see ourselves, or in an isolated area of a metropolitan city, but to see representations of yourself everywhere makes Cuba such an important place, and it kind of speaks to you about the history of how these people have continued to make themselves the center of their existence.
Right.
Even though my communication skills was limited, I felt at home.
Right, it's
And I speak English. You understand what I'm saying? I felt at home. Like,
well, the thing about it is, and that's the other thing. So it's funny because the ultra conscious people get into. Here's my beef with people when they compare.
Let me just say this real quick, right? So when you get initiated, right, into this religion, right? So he is an Oba Oriate. So Oba is another word for king. The king, the master of the ceremony, right? So when you actually get initiated, the Oba is the one who actually conducts the ceremony, tells everybody where to put things, do this, do that. But also, as he is telling people things, he sings the songs, he knows the stories. Like, so you're also getting told the stories. You're getting told the history of everything. So it's a history, and even him coming onto YouTube explaining the history, like when you get into these events, you're being told history. When you go to this initiation, you're being told the history of this, the story of that, why this is that. So it's a blessing to even have an Oba Oriate that speaks English to tell this stuff, because really, like, it's been kind of only like kind of hidden in the Cuban, because Spanish and a Spanish thing that they were blessed to be able to have these people that knew all the history, and have this esoteric knowledge. But to have a person like this, that's why I keep playing his videos, because him being American or Oriate, right? This is like the closest thing that you have to like really understanding the stories, understanding the history. Because when you get initiated, you're getting told the history by an Oriate. You know, that is basically a griot, a person that understands not only the songs, the stories, the history, everything. This guy is a breath of almost like a library. You can ask him a question, he knows exactly where to bring it from, everything. So imagine you get initiated and you have like basically a person sitting there that is like a library of knowledge that you can ask any question and he'll be able to like say, okay, X, Y, Z, this comes from that. So that's why I continue to play his videos, because he's an Oriate. He's like probably like when it comes down to like Orisha, like before Babalawo is Oba, I would say. And Babalawo is like more like Ifa, but like for like the Orisha aspect and the Odu aspect, and when it comes down to the Dilagoon, which is like the divination system of the Santero or the Orisha, they are the ones that know all the stories, all the information. So this guy is almost like what you're listening to is a person that has studied for almost 30 years, 40 years maybe. He's 46 and he's been in it his whole life. So pretty much his whole life, he's learned this information. So he has the knowledge from how it came to America, all the history and information. So that's why I continue to play his videos, because as a person that's in this space, he probably is one of the main people that know that our age that know the information. So let's go on.
Yes, what they call miscommonly represent by calling Santeria. People will criticize Santeria and say it is bastardized and creolized because of Spanish influence. But you never hear people criticize Haitian Vodun.
Ooh.
The Cuban Lukumi is truly void of Spanish influence. The actual songs are not in Spanish. When you get to Haitian Vodun, a lot of that vernacular is French. That's correct. So that means that the songs were constructed in that paradigm. These songs that they sing in the Lukumi drummings, you see evidence of the same cadences and words used in places like Brazil, right? So that some of the same songs come over, they might have a couple words changed or, a punchline changed, but they're the same song. So that's one of the things that I noticed that people, they criticize about Santeria and Lukumi in terms of, oh, well, they speak Spanish, but you don't criticize Haiti for that, right? Haitian Vodun is not seen to be less effective or pure outside of Dahomey or Benin. or Togo, but somehow Lukumi is not given the same consideration in contrast to traditional Nigerian Orisha worship.
It's a good point you brought up, Hadrino, because I was on Facebook and I saw they were singing a song to Obatala. And this, I guess somebody that is a continental African in Nigeria was singing to Obatala, and it was this Lukumi priest that was singing to Obatala. And the words were damn near identical. How they sang it was different, which you could say hundreds of years in different places and different influences, but the message was still the same. Mm-hmm. So even going back to the idea of creolization, like I can admit, in my journey to finding all of this, I was like, man, I don't know, do I want to go the Lukumi route or do I just want to go to Nigeria because it's more Black? I feel like Lukumi, and this is me not knowing the history mm-hmm. of Lukumi mm-hmm. and just seeing the aesthetics that other cultures have assigned to Lukumi, which are normally more of the more European, like white-looking Spanish countries. Because when you go into Cuba and you see those statues, like the statues we went in the store, you wasn't seeing like the statues that you see here. No. You see a representation of the people. So I think it's very important for African Americans, if you're deciding to even come this route, is to learn the history of it, because the history is Black as fuck. Right.
Well, see, but that's the thing. That's the other thing, though. Black history is a misnomer. It really isn't Black history. It's really just whatever fragments people could afford to necessarily bring to the surface. Meaning, we wouldn't even be in this conundrum if you understood. So, going back to the whole thing about Spanish. Spanish is a derivative of Latin, and Latin is a byproduct of the Moors. Uh-oh. And so this is why the Latin words are very similar to some of the Lukumi words, right? And so we don't factor in. So this was a big thing that when my mother's godfather returned from living in Nigeria for 35 years, we had a discussion, he and I. And the discussion was about his regrets in changing certain things from the Lukumi system without the proper knowledge. So in the late 70s and early 80s, when African Americans became a little bit proficient within the tradition that they could start to initiate themselves, they decided to change the aesthetic of what we call the middle day clothes. This is the clothes that you wear on the day after your initiation to present to the community that you have been initiated. Now, traditionally, these clothes have a Castilian aesthetic to them. Puffy shoulders, applique, the breasts, across the breast buttons. So the African Americans were adulate to that. They thought that this was too Castilian, and so they rejected this tradition, and they sought out traditional Nigerian attire. And so 35 years later, after living in Nigeria, my mother's godfather, who is an author, Babalawo, expressed to me that his regrets in them changing the clothes because they did not understand the historical implications of the clothing. And so that the clothing was there to empower the African because the clothing represented he who was in power. And so for that day, albeit I be a slave or a layman, now I have collected my little bit of monies to go through this rites of passage. And now this day, they are going to present me to my community as someone important now. And so I mimic he who has been a model of authority, who is the conquistador.
So really it is, African spirituality is African psychology.
Oh, very much so.
101.
See, these words that you have based on the Greek etymology, they fall short. Spiritualism is a therapy session. It is group therapy session.
Facts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's group therapy session. You get your personal therapy session in the divination, but that's still not too intimate because it's the diviner and he or she, or what they call the ofecita, the person who is recording, the witness, right? So you're allowed to mesh over these idiosyncrasies that you may suffer from based on these contexts. The spiritualism allows, so now this is back to Cuba. Cuba developed a system of spiritualism through outside influence. So spiritualism, it conceptually existed prior to Allan Kardec. If you get a lot of historical books about the Congo and the motifs that come out of the Congo, you will see pictures or paintings of inside the little hut. Then they'll have the Nkisi, and above it, it'll be some little shelf with a glass of water and a cross. They were very, very familiar with Jesus Christ 200 years before they were ever brought on a ship.
Okay.
So when Allan Kardec codified it, they absorbed the good tenets of that system, and they applied it to what they understood, so that the spiritualism that comes out of Cuba, Mesa Blanca, directly affects the spiritualism that comes out of Puerto Rico. And that directly affects what you see when they have the Mala Verde in places like Venezuela and stuff, where they necessarily deify drug dealers.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Right, the Mala Verde. That comes from the mechanism of spiritualism, because spiritualism created the mechanism of a glass of water and light, and an actual altar outside of the church, of having a statuette and it being sanctified by the priest and whatnot. No, I'm just going to necessarily wash my glasses out. I'm going to say some prayers and dedicate this space to them. This is a Cuban construct. Now, I would be lying to say that I'm all the way familiar with how this concept traveled. I will give some credence to the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal at that time was an exchange of a lot of Caribbean people. And, Caribbean people may not have had the same structural mechanisms as Cuba had with Lucumí, but they understood to go see the Juju man, the Obeah man, right? The root man. Okay, so you go see this person. And so when they went to places like Panama, where they were interacting with these different customs, it gave credence because in context, when they talk about Palo, right? And they speak about the brujos. They don't really talk about the Angolans and the people that came from Congo as being really the brujos. The ones who they necessarily give this identification to is the people from like the Canary Islands and places like Cape Verde and all of these places. This is where they were like, their witchcraft was really, really good. Because these people were constantly coming in contact with travelers. And so their magic was good, that they pick up a whole bunch of stuff. So this is where the phrase Santo Tomás ve para Acre. St. Thomas the island is where like the worst slaves were sent. And these were the dudes that you couldn't really do nothing to them, because these niggas they're warlocks. You put these niggas in the cell and they come back, they gone. What the fuck they go? Niggas on the roof and shit. What are you gonna do with these niggas, right? So that concept of Santo Tomás or in St. Thomas, you believe it when you see it. You talking that shit till you see one of these niggas get out their chains and he fly away. Because there's recordings of that. There's a book called Diaries of a Runaway Slave by Esteban Montenegro.
Got it downstairs.
In that book, he talks about what he saw from the slaves. And he's not an initiate. That's what makes the book so profound. He's not a Lukumi initiate. He's not a Palomayombe initiate. He just tell you what he's seeing the other Africans around him doing. And he talks about how on the three legs of the cauldron, the Congolese would make the pot, walk down the barracks. Or they would wait and see the master walk down or the overseer walk down the road on the horse, and they would take the dirt that the horse walked on and they would put it in their pot. And they would take the pots and put the pots on the porch and dare the overseer to come outside for the day. That's how they would get days off. They would do witchcraft, put the cauldron on the porch and dare the overseer come outside. I guarantee you die today. Okay? So they became most proficient and known for their protests. When here in America, when we look at what's commonly known as bed warmers, bed warmers is guerrilla warfare by Congolese women. I'm gonna poison this woman, this white Miss Ann is always sick in the slave movie, right? Because they've been feeding her. So they're like, you're gonna kill this bitch nice and slow, right? So I got this leaf. Then you keep eating it, you're gonna die. So I give it to her for breakfast. I gave it to her for lunch. So she got this fever and this cough, right? And she can't get rid of it. Right. And when she dies, he's going to come out to the barracoons and pick on somebody new. And it's her job now to tell him what to do.
Yep.
Right? This is Congolese guerrilla warfare. Right? So, back to Cuba. Cuba is important because Cuba set the tone for the codification of the tradition. Right? Because there was no codification. Because remember, these traditions and this science was not codified in Africa. It was a locale informational tool. People from the locale necessarily knew how to work certain orishas, right? The Cuban paradigm forces them to codify this thing, to come up with a system, to look at the entire map and see what is the connectivity of each thing, okay? So that the rituals that come out of Cuba are very, are actually the most ancient. The other issue is that they're now coming to grips with. Well, let me just say this. A lot of these New Age scholars and Yoruba scholars, they be paying attention and they don't give credit where credit is due, right? So for a long time, the misnomer was that Lugumi was a fragmented concept of what was happening in Africa, and they had forgotten some things and they could only put together what they could remember. And so Lugumi was this bastardized version of Orisha traditions in the Americas.
Right.
But now we find out that there is a province in Yoruba land named Olukumi.
Right.
Who gets its uniqueness from the fact that it is a culmination of migrants from all other Yoruba cosmopolitan areas as well as the surrounding areas around that. So that Olukumi is said to have had some Congo influences in it, some Dahomian influences, some Togo influences, Cameroon influences, Ile Ife, Oyo. So that the common misnomer that this system of Lukumi was somehow set up here in Americas is actually a misinterpretation. That these customs that come out of Cuba come from a particular locale in Yoruba land where this is what these people did. The idea that the Lukumis particularly were sought after says something about the information that these people were handling and how important it was to the destabilization of Africa and the colonialization that came thereafter, right? So that there is something to say about the fact that we have a crowning ceremony in our Oshun rituals, which denotes royalty, which means that there may have been a coup d'etat in terms of the power structure in early Africa during the time that we were brought over here.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Hey, Sugar Love.
Hey, what's up?
Man, so, you know, I did this interview and I'm I said, say, hey, Sugar Love.
Yeah, my son had my phone because I had his sister had called my phone, so I didn't get the phone call. My son was talking to his sister.
Oh, okay. Well, we're about halfway through it, so I'm not sure if you want to like start it from that point or like redo it but I wanted to like, you know, I mean, you could like start your live and like, you know, go from here, but
it's only going to be half, so I'll probably review it later. But you could just give me a little.
So basically, like what it is, I actually went into my initiation, like what happened, what made me. You know what? Did I do that already yet? I think I did. And then I actually got into. Well, actually, I went into like. I didn't get into my initiation yet. Right now, I'm just discussing why. You know what I'm saying? What the whole history is, right?
So when was this done?
This morning.
No, the video itself.
His video is like about 6 years old.
Oh, this is okay. All right.
Now he is like the Oba Oriate when I got my Olokun ceremony, and this is the first time I actually got to experience actually hearing what an Oba does. So what the Oba does is a person, he's a historian. So what I found out by actually having an American Oba officiate my ceremony for Olokun, I got to really see what really happens in the ceremony. Because when I was getting my whole ceremony in Cuba, it was beautiful, but everybody spoke Spanish. So all the tea about and the history probably didn't hear it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of information that gets shared during these ceremonies. And I wanted to show him because, like, just to give an idea of the people that are officiating these ceremonies, he is an Oba from America, and he's he's like a library of information. He knows all the songs, he knows all of the stories, he also knows the history. So he was born. His mom named him Oba. You know?
Yeah, I remember we went through his video. So my Brooklyn brother, whoop whoop. So I'm gonna feel.
Shouts out.
Whoop,
So
whoop.
like, yeah. So like when the guy brought me to like do my interview with him, like I played a lot of his stuff, and I was like, you know what? He can explain it better than I can because he's been there long enough. He's been there way longer than I have. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I've been like kind of like building up to me explaining, okay, why I got into it, or actually my initiation. Prior to this, I talked about like, you know, my Christianity story. You know what I'm saying? How my mom had me in different churches, this, that, the other. And
but do you tell like how you came across this and what made you say I want to? Did you say that, or maybe I want to ask you a question?
I actually did, yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
But that was earlier, so I was hoping that I've been trying to get you on. I've been trying to like get your attention to like, you know, because I'm sure. But you know what? If you do like a show on this on your channel, then you can probably go back and like, and I'll come up and we'll go through it. So.
Okay, that's cool. I definitely will review it. But yeah, we're gonna let this go. You know the children take your phone. Children were taking your phone.
Honey, Offset had my phone the whole time when I was on this. I did at 12 o'clock, and then she had my phone the whole time. So
you see the children take your phone.
He's talking about right now. He's talking about Cuba and the significance of Cuba, because a lot of people like want to dumb down Cuba like it doesn't mean anything. But he's saying like no, Cuba was the holder of information, and on top of that, there was different people called Lukumi that were at a different level than like you would say the actual Yorubas. There was an actual people called Lukumi, and then you find out the Babalawos were the ones that sold the Lukumi out. So you'll find that out later on. But let's go.
Oh, all right. No. I'm definitely saying that. I'm definitely giving him his props. I'm like, you about to open up a can of worms.
No, I mean, because the reality is that in Ghana is the only place that has a slave castle on the continent of Africa.
But this is the shit that we have to talk about, because we have this romanticized, as African Americans, we have this romanticized view of Africa that it is only the white man's influence as to why we are the way we are. And but that's what I'm saying. Like that's why spaces like this are important, to be able to clear things up about what may have happened and transpired in Africa, and why Cuba is so important is because we took the best of what we had and we took it and we mixed it together and essentially made this gumbo for us to be able to have sustenance here, for us to be able to forget the bullshit that we were doing that was tearing us apart, that allowed somebody to be able to come in, but to bring all those elements in for us to survive.
Well, that's interesting, because now you bring up the concept of what they call the 7 African powers. Right? Siete Potencias los Africanos. It's a concept that 7 major tribes sat down on an undisclosed date and came to a truce about the future of African people in this new world. In this truce, they came up with a structure for the proliferation of their traditions and rituals, so that there was a conversation that said, okay, if a child is to be initiated, the first stage of rites of passage is through Congo.
Okay.
Right? And from Congo now, albeit you receive these deities and that deity until you prepare to go on to Ocha, which then prepares you again to go on to either a drumming society, or Ifa, a divination society, or into the industries that it takes to proliferate the tradition, which is the women doing the sewing the clothes, beating the attributes, cooking the foods, right?
So do you think, because like America is very different geographically, we have so many different, we have super cold climates, super hot climates, we have all of these different elemental things that are going on here. Based on, if I came from Ile-Ife in Nigeria, I wouldn't understand how a certain type of energy would work.
Sure. So
the fact that they were smart enough to understand, like, okay, Congos, y'all be in the Ndoki, y'all be in the forest, so y'all understand that forest magic. We got some forests here, so how about you give us some of that so we can figure this shit out? So like, we have to give credit where credit is due, and I think that is disrespectful. And even with myself, like, I was very disrespectful to think that the Cuban influence had nothing to do with the African American experience. And I think that we have to clear up these misconceptions about why Cuba is so important and who were the people, the purveyors of the culture, and how they did it, and make that common knowledge. Because oftentimes people are going over, they're flying over Cuba to go to Nigeria to get something that they don't, and I got friends who have Nigerian Ocha. I'm not saying anything about it, but the friend that I know that has Nigerian Ocha, their roots tie directly to Nigeria. Like, she can go back and tell you where her family was in Nigeria. So I understand that. But for people who we were brought here all through Cuba in the transatlantic slave trade, we're directly tied and connected to Lukumi Ocha.
Well, you're directly tied to Lukumi Ocha due to the fact that they didn't take Africans from a vast place in Africa. They took Africans from specific nations. Ghana bought their way out. It was like, all right, well, we'll let you set up this castle and you can bring them through here. Just don't take our people. Because in the beginning, some of their peoples got brought in the early days.
Right.
So that you find Ghanaian culture in places like Suriname, Panama, Jamaica, right?
New York, too, right?
And well, yeah, in the African burial grounds of New York, and then some places like in Ohio and things of that, right? So what happens is the Cuba and its design spiritually. So here we are today as African Americans talking about traditions that come out of Africa. That didn't happen without Cuban influence.
Facts.
Particularly through the music. So when jazz becomes proliferated in, let's say, the early parts of the 20th century, right? The early 1900s, jazz becomes something. Jazz directly gets its syncopation from Jelly Roll Morton, who was Caribbean, who spent time in Cuba, who understood the clave and inserted it into the jazz experience, which it became the metronome for and the timekeeper for jazz.
Shout out to New Orleans.
That jazz directly affected, reverberated, and came back and affected Cuba. That it gave them something else to expound on the rumba and turn into Latin jazz. That Latin jazz projected a man by the name of Chano Pozo to the United States by way of Dizzy Gillespie. Chano Pozo brought Graciela, Machito, Mongo Santa Maria. He brought those people here. Because of them being here, they directly went back to Cuba and asked to have a Babalawo sent to New York for them. They originally asked for a famous Babalawo by the name of Quentin Lecombe. Quentin Lecombe turned down their offer. He says, I'm not supposed to go. He said, but I'll send my godson. And so he sent Pancho Moro, Ifa Morote, the first Babalawo. That came by way of Chano Pozo and Dizzy Gillespie. Okay? That opened the doors for people like Robert Farris Thompson to write the books to incite African Americans to search out their culture. Okay? So, cultural consumption. What do we as Americans consume culturally? Right? We consume everything around us. So, just 2 minutes ago, we was listening to Supercat. Neither you are from the Caribbean directly, right? Away from it, a generation or so away from it. But as an African American, we have embraced the Caribbean cultural scene. We've made it a part of being Black in America, so that you could put on reggae and I know how to conduct myself in such environment.
Right.
Right? Because I am Black, and so I culturally identify with that in some way, somehow. The same way Dominicans culturally identify with reggaeton and hip hop and trap music. The other day I was in the Dominican barbershop and they literally was playing Dominican trap music. Like I'm talking about like the same way that the young boys talk, but they were talking the same way, but they were talking in Spanish. Get okay, asshole. You know, like the same boppity baby, the baby in them, they were doing it in Spanish because they identify culturally with the Blackness, right? So cultural consumption, it is important for us to culturally consume lukumi from the perspective of the Cuban and then expound on it. So you have to champion first how it's given to you first before you can necessarily put your twist on it.
Right.
So we have, so what happens is before we can even get to the Dominicans doing reggae tone, we first had to necessarily experience the Panamanians. So during the time of Shabba Ranks, they have Dembo, right? And then out of Panama came to the gas gangway, gonna do the way to the gas gangway. And then we didn't know what the fuck they were saying. But it was to the cultural rhythm and frequency.
Exactly.
And so we allowed it to be reggae and dancehall without even knowing what the fuck was being said. Because we culturally identify with it, right? So that is the consumption of us culturally. Now, you see the cultural consumption in the acquisition of these traditions by Mexicans.
Venezuelan.
Right?
Yeah.
The fact that they are now, you can go into their botanicas and Shango statue, he's gonna look Mexican. He look mestizo, right?
Yeah.
And there's no fault in that because it is the aspiration that you should want your God to look like you.
Psychology.
Exactly. But there is some racism in that for them being taught that because essentially that's what makes the Cuban so very, very unique. Is no matter how white of a Cuban he is, he does not deny that his gods are Black.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
So he uses the Blackness to denote the divinity in them. Nah, them motherfuckers got the dark skin, right? And so they recognize Mammy as a cultural icon, right? Because Mammy is Black and overweight, but she's wise and she's calm and she's all-knowing. And so they celebrate those parts of that archetype. They embrace it. We see it as a detriment. So this is how Mammy has come and turned into Precious. Because we don't embrace and love her for being overweight and for necessarily being a constant and for being calm and for taking care of the domestic part that has been all but abandoned in our homes. Right? So that there is a dynamic, even within Ocha, in terms of how Yemonja and Oshun are, how they take care of the household. Yemonja fills in where Oshun can't. When Oshun is too busy being a fly girl and don't have the patience for the children and doesn't have the wherewithal and the know-how, Yemonja steps in. So this gives us an indication that young mothers should not be raising children by themselves. Forget just a man. There should be a mother, an aunt, a sister, a brother, a cousin, a grandparent, somebody to assist. Exactly. So that you're really supposed to be able to have a baby and then drop it off at the family house.
That's how I grew up.
Right? But what happens is we haven't addressed some of the monsters in the family house. So who's necessarily been done wrong? In Cuba, they are very, very aware of the monsters in the society, so that they necessarily address it. Like Alberto, you know what it is when you come in, and they like, that's my brother Alberto. Don't bother him; he'll bother you. They let you know. Don't let the kids who bother him. He's snappy. It's out there in the open. They don't have it in the back rooms.
So with that knowing about all aspects of living, they've adapted that into their culture, and it would behoove African Americans for us to look at those babies in the closet, things that we don't talk about, those elephants in the room, for us to be able to have an idea of our culture and to be able to recognize the good and the bad.
Well, yeah, we have to and
put it in its place.
We have to own it.
And if we take Lukumi as a template, after we've done that inventory and we take it as a template and we live those tenets that are actually inside of Lukumi and consume those in our lives, that we can live differently and we can function.
Well, the Lukumi is only going to give you identification and context to what you see every day. See, that's the thing. Lukumi don't offer necessarily to put a hand over it and everything become rainbows and unicorns. It necessarily offers the fact that I got to give you context so that you know what you're dealing with, so you know how to deal with it.
To Sandra, one of my madrinas. All right, before I get into my Orisha journey, what do you have to say about what he said so far?
I was talking while he was talking. He's, far as the history wise, he's absolutely right. You know, you can't dispute that. Yeah, the history wise and you know, about identifying, you know, with the culture, because technically we were dropped off, same people dropped off at different places. Whomever your enslaver was, you adapted to their language, so in their culture. But being that we all was one, we still have that connection, even if it's through music, even if it's through beat. We, like you said, we don't know why, but we connect. That's because we all are one. Yeah.
So the next part I'm about to show is like my journey into Orisha. So I'll go into that.
Of our culture and to be able to recognize the good and the bad.
Well, yeah, we have to
and put it in its place.
We have to own it.
And if we take Lukumi as a template, after we've done that inventory and we take it as a template and we live those tenets that are actually inside of Lukumi and consume those in our lives, that we can live differently and we can function.
Well, the Lukumi is only going to give you identification and context to what you see every day. See, that's the thing. Lukumi don't offer necessarily to put a hand over it and everything become rainbows and unicorns. It necessarily offers the fact that I got to give you context so that you know what you're dealing with, so you know how to deal with it.
So let's get into my story. So I wanted to start off with like giving some context of things, but let's get into how I got into Lukumi. Now, at the time, I gave birth to a son named Asar, you know, and Asar was like, you know, premature. There was like a whole like a freeze that happened in Texas, which caused me to you know, go into preeclampsia, and like I was pretty much on death's door, you know. Now before this, I was already singing Babalawo. I had already got my hand of Ifa. I was already in the religion, right? So what happened is that, like, you know, I was told to do Osha, like I would say like a year before this. I didn't do it. Now, a lot of times, you know, you get told to do Osha, which is to go get your initiation. And if you don't do it, sometimes, you know, hey, you know what I'm saying? So I almost passed away in this situation. Giving birth to the son, he passed away. I believe that he gave his life for mine. You know what I'm saying? There's a name for these type of babies that come and go like this, like very early. I forget what the name is, but there's like a name for those babies that do this, you know? So what happened is that like after this whole situation, which was very traumatic for me, I got called to go back into Osha. So I went, I got some money, I paid the money, and it was about $10,000. I went ahead and I began my path to Osha. So this is me on the plane. Now, this is me going to Cuba. So I had the choice of going to Africa or going to Cuba. I chose to go the Lukumi route, right? So, man, the first thing I encountered being on this plane was the roar of applause and dancing and singing as as the plane hit the ground, people were dancing, and man, it was like a party. You know what I'm saying? I've never like experienced nothing like this in my life. That's why I had to bring my camera up, but I missed the celebration. I didn't get to get that on camera. So this is my padrino. He picked me up. This is my padrino, and this is Sandra, one of my madrinas. She was my interpreter that helped me to understand like what everybody was saying because they all speak Spanish. And this is one of the Oba. That's her son, who's an Oba, who also like was pretty much there to interpret things as things went along. You know.
So real quick, how did you get set up with them? Is that something that once you decided to go forward with the culture, that's what they presented that to you with people to help you from out here, or they were already there?
So let me get into it. Initially I was dealing with Isheshe Babalawo, right? And he was doing this Omo Awo thing, which is like the child of the secrets. Awo means of the secrets. Omo, that's a child. Awo, like a Babalawo of the secrets. Awo is secrets, right? So he initially, I started working with him initially. And this was me like learning Isheshe like tradition, right? So me moving into Isheshe, I began to learn about Ifa, right? Not so much being an Orisha, but more about Ifa and Egun. So the first thing that you really need to learn when you do this is the Egun, which is like your heavenly ancestors, right? So understanding the Egun, like you would understand like these understandings of Ifa, right? So these are the 16 truths of Ifa, right? And this is like the initial training I went to. That right after I did this training, I was told you need to go and get Osha. Didn't do it. A year later, I was on my deathbed having this baby. Baby died, and I had no choice but to like do something because so there's a couple paths into Osha. Sometimes it's like, okay, I have a gift, or maybe your parents did it, or sometimes it's like you're on death's door. You know what I'm saying? This is to save your life. In my situation, it was to save my life, right? But this is like the initial training that I got, right, about Ifa. This was like more Isheshe tradition. I'm not sure if it's the same thing in Lukumi, but these are like the tenets of Ifa. So there is a single God. There is no devil, okay? Except for the day you were born and the day you're supposed to die, there is no single event in your life that cannot be forecast by Ifa and when necessary change. It is your birthright to be happy, successful, and fulfilled. You should grow and obtain wisdom during the process of life. You are reborn through your blood relatives. That's once again when you get into the ancestors, because they feel like, okay, if I like my bloodline, people like my child is an ancestor that came down from in the past. So it might be the ancestor of the person I was with, but it's an ancestor. So through your blood comes that's why procreation is so important, because that's how ancestors are able to tunnel through and come back into the earth, right? Heaven, Orun, is home, and earth is the marketplace. And that's where you get into the fact that if you actually get into Nigerian and even just like African ways of thinking, it's like the earth is the marketplace. Everything is about commerce. It's about commerce, give and take. You pay this, I give you that. Even if you go to like Nigeria and they say, hey, and you go to buy an apple, you know what I'm saying? You're weak if you just accept that price. You know what I'm saying? Hey, it's $20. You know what I'm saying? No, not going. I got 5. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay. Well, I'll give you 6. You know what I'm saying? So like that whole culture is about like that whole thing about a marketplace, not just so much I tell you a price. So that's like about like bargaining and like going back and forth, right?
Right.
You are part of the universe in a literal, not figurative way. You must never initiate harm to another human being. You must never attempt to harm the universe in which you are a part. Your temporal and spiritual capacities must work together. You're born with a specific path. It's your goal to travel it. Divination provides the roadmap. Once again, I go to a Babalawo, like things aren't working right, or I go to an Oba Oriate, or I go to a Santero. They can tell me, hey, this is about to happen. You know what I'm saying? You're in E-Ray or a Sobo. So either you're doing good, you're on the right path, or no, you're going through some issues, you're not on the right path, right? So when you get like these divinations, they'll tell you, okay, you're not on the right path. Everybody have a specific path, right? If you're not on that path, hey, you're in a circle. You're off the path. You're not right. You know what I'm saying? And so based on sacrifice, different things, get you back on path, and then now you're back up and running. Okay. Our ancestors exist and must be honored. Sacrifice guarantees success, right? The Orisha lives within us, and you need to have no fear. So that was the training I got when I was like kind of initiating into getting more into Isheshe versus Lukumi, but it's pretty much the same. You know what I'm saying? And in when I was actually learning in the Egun practice of what that particular Babalawo was a Egun Babalawo, so he focused more on the Egun is, like I said, your heavenly ancestors, right? So so I learned stuff like this, Ancestral Prayers. May we acknowledge the presence of our ancestors and realize that without them we would not be. May we forever honor their presence, for it's out of love that they gave of themselves. May the spirit of our ancestors continue to guide, lead, teach us for our growth and strength that they must be concerned. May we never forget to daily thank our ancestors and give heed to their guidance to avoid severe hardships. Ashe. So then they showed us how to do a shrine, things that we do to correct the shrine, to the ancestors, how to put things in certain places, things give to the ancestors. Okay, the alcohol, different things like that. They like that, like coffee, candles, their pictures, flowers, fold of the seas, things like this. This allows you to food, incense, sometimes a doll, a representation of the ancestor figure, and that allows us to communicate with them and talk to them, because their energy is still here. Energy does not it doesn't just die. It just changes form. You know what I'm saying? So that ancestor lived in this body, but you know what? Their soul and their spirit still lives on. So therefore, you can communicate with that spirit. You know what I'm saying? These are some of the things that we learned during that Omoawo Egungun aspect of things, and that's how I started off is Egungun, and and so just understanding Odu. So Odu are when people cast Obi or they cast the lagoon, what the actual literal corpus is from Ifa and from those things are called the Odu, right? And it really is based on duality, So you have a dark and light, darkness, light. So and that's ones and twos, right? So it's either no, sorry, not ones and twos, 0 and 1, zeros and ones, almost like a binary code, and it's based on the contraction and expansion of the universe. And through that expansion and contraction is where creation comes from, right? Is contraction and expansion, and that's pretty much what happens when a child is born. Is that the mother's womb contracts and expands, and then it does it enough to it pushes out the baby, right? So everything is really based on a lot of like procreation aspect, male, female, the mother giving birth, all that stuff. Reproduction is really the whole thing. Duality. So the duality of contraction and expansion are the two fundamental laws that gave birth to all of creation. It is from the unknown realm of triple darkness that all known matter of light, dark energy particles were born. so above, so below. All of the 16 major and 240 minor Odu symbolize this spiritual phenomenon, as all the Odu markings represent elements of darkness, contraction, and light expansion. Oyeku is the owner of Ogbe, and if you get into Odu, you'll understand what that means. Energy is born from the unknown darkness of space and takes form of an egg-shaped structure called a sphere or spiral. The sphere consists of two polar opposites with four portals on the right, male side, 4 portals on the left, female side. These 8 portals are the link between the 4th dimension of matter, time, and space, and the 5th dimension of the invisible realm of creation. Mathematically, there are 256 ways in which energy can pass from the invisible to the visible dimensions, as these 2 dimensions are 4 polar opposites intersect. As a correlation, each of the 256 Odu patterns have 2 legs representing the polar opposites found in all energy patterns. 1 leg on the right, male side, with 4 markers representing the portals of darkness, light, and 1 leg on the left, female side, and 4 markers representing darkness and light, /light. According to the ancient wisdom of our ancestors, Odu Ifun Meiji, 16th Odu, is symbolized as the cosmic egg of creation, origin, energy sphere. This Odu pattern was the first pattern born out of the great darkness into light of creation. I know it sounds like a lot, but bottom line is, I put it like this. Now, me being an intellectual person, I'm like, so we have this. This is like binary code 256. That was like the first amount of like space you had on a hard drive, or a disk. That whole thing is really like technology. So the Nigerians, the Lukumi, understood this technology and was able to predict certain things based on this divination aspect process. And I can't really go more deeper into it, but that is a level of intellect that our forefathers had when it really came down into like being able to predict things, because it was not using just I feel this. It's like, no, based on this binary code, it matches up to this patch of key, which is like a song, which is also sound waves, this, that, the other. And that is what's going on in your life right now. So it's technology, basically. Before there was ever technology, there was Odu Ifa. Before Odu Ifa, there was the Lagoon, which is another technology, that people use, right? So when I found this out and I was able to really think, wow, come on now. You cannot, if anybody with any sense would say, well, damn, that's some deep, energy was born from unknown darkness and space. It took the form of an egg. That's what's in your body right there. You know what I'm saying? When a woman's body is an egg, right? Called a sphere. Darkness, egg, boom, polar opposites. So the egg breaks apart. It's 2. That's what happens when a child is born, is like light hits the egg, the sperm hits the egg, it creates a chain reaction. It splits into 2, then it splits into 4, then it splits into 16, then 256. And then from that 256, then life is born, right? So my thing is that our ancient ancestors understood this and was able to understand that in this creation itself. That means like your creation, my creation, life itself, everything that goes on. And then Babalawo and different all Orishas are able to tap into that creation and understand what's going to happen in life. Not just like, oh, I got some tarot cards and the spirit is speaking to me. No, this is a mathematical equation to understand what's going to happen. So to me being a software engineer, it resonated with me, right? So that's how I got into it right there. Boom. When I saw this and I understood from a computer engineer's standpoint of computation, that was all I needed to hear. Oh, okay, you're breaking down binary code. This whole thing is really binary code, is going into a database, is pulling out stories based on what comes up. And then based on that binary code, this story comes up, that story comes up, and then that's what your reading is. That's that, and then it's almost like I said, the at the most percent, like 95% accurate. And not only that, but there's also like things. There's also if you get like a reading, you get a prescription. Okay, so if you're
That's crazy.
if you're off track, oh okay, well this is how you get. Okay, this is what you can do because you about to you listen. A car accident about to happen in 2 weeks, right? Okay, you can avoid that. You do X, Y, Z. You'll see the car accident, but it won't happen. You'll see exactly where it's going to hit you. You know what I'm saying? It won't hit you. You know what I'm saying? That is
Right.
the thing that made me understand and say respect this religion, and from the African aspect. So, and then when I went to Cuba, so now let's go into like my going to Cuba and that aspect, right? So now Cuba, okay, as beautiful as it is, you know, it also is kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a harsh condition. You know, you see how it is. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. You know what I'm saying? You know, but these people have been able to continue the tradition throughout all the tragedies that have come with Cuba, throughout all the communism where they can like barely like might not even have enough like food to even do the stuff. They'll figure out how to do it. You know what I'm saying? But as you can see, like you're looking at like a whole situation with a bunch of like, hold on. Is that my phone doing that? Is that my?
What is it?
No, someone's calling me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just showing you guys different like views of Cuba. So you know, as I'm going around, I'm like, you know, they show me around Cuba. I get to see the conditions and how everybody's living, and you know, and this is like Cuba right here. So this is a huge cemetery in Cuba. So then we get into the initiation where they bring me to certain spots. This is my this is my Iyabona. This is one of my madrinas. And then this is my godmother right here. This is my main madrina, my godmother. You know what I'm saying? So anybody like thinking that Cuba is just a bunch of like white? No, it's black people over there, African people that are maintaining this tradition. Now, I'm not gonna lie, all that diesel fuel is stinks. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of rough. But as you can see, we're in this. You know, this is what Cuba looks like. It's rough. You know? And it is amazing that people are able to still continue the tradition, keep the tradition alive, keep the Kumi alive. So the first thing I did was a Misa, and that was the beginning of the Misa. Actually, that was me talking to the Babalawo, and then you have a person that writes down the stuff like that, and so that's like the record keeper. This is one of the churches when I first, you know, I went into the church, and you know, because this is how they were able to hide the religion from people that didn't, you know, believe, you know, that the Pope outlawed it. So they still pretended to like, you know, worship the Catholic saints and things like that. So you have to go there. So it's not just like it's history. You're not just going there. It's a history lesson. So that's my Misa. And so I wanted to show like the community aspect of like the initiation. So everyone from the community is involved. You have like Iyabona. I have like, you know, different people that came there. Like everybody comes to the initiation to help. So it's like a whole community thing, you know. That's my translator there. Also another madrina there, Sandra. Much love to Sandra. Now this chicken feather, that's okay. My head Orisha is Oya, and this chicken is probably one of the most violent, like kind of like most chicken ass chicken that you're gonna ever run across. It looks like a vulture. It's a chicken looks like a vulture, and this chicken do not play. You know what I'm saying? So this is, you know, once I like did my initiation, I'm on my what you call a chrono, and so this is my view out from the throne. And what happens in Lukumi is that this is like the first time. So once you get crowned, this is their ability to actually see the Orisha embodied. So this is their ability to see Oya. So Oya has now incumbent my body, and now everybody comes and gives offering to Oya, and you're there, as the Orisha. I am the Orisha. I'm in a throne. I'm sitting up there dressed up like the Orisha, and you see how the how much love that they have for that Orisha, And that's my madrina and padrino. And they be getting drunk the whole time though.
I already know how the family roll down that way.
It's a party. It's a party. It's a party.
They sipping. Salud.
No, I don't even think they drank. I think I was the only one that drank water that week. You know what I'm saying? They was partying, honey. This is a Misa. This is like where they actually the spiritualist, because I'm a child of Oya, comes in and gives you a Misa, which is a mass, spiritual mass, and that's what they call. It's more like a person that actually can see the spirit, see like the ancestors, see that type of stuff, and she'll come in and tell you what they're saying, what from a spiritism standpoint. And this is like this is like them. The dog was like, "What's going on?" The baby dancing at me. Man, so they were all night long just singing different songs and so I'm in my chrono, they're putting the money down and everything like that, people coming in, and it was a whole like community thing, They came up, they showed their outfits off, and like it, and this is the my Ita, so that was me getting my life reading. This is me with a fly on my head, looking like what's that president's name? That had the fly on his head.
A what?
So this was like, and I talked to my sisters after that. Then I went to the Catholic Church, and Pence had to fly all the like the Catholic saints that lined up with each Orisha, and I really got to like travel around Cuba and get a history. So it's like you get initiated, you get your history, you understand where everything came from, You get to see Cuba in its essence and see, you know, and look at me looking all like, hey. You know, that's what he was talking about. They dress you up like a colonial, like back in the colonial time.
Yeah, what Oba was talking. I mean, what Oba was talking about.
Yeah, I had to put the thing on my head like I was back in the 20s, 19, whatever. 18th
Like Aunt Jemima.
century, you know what I'm saying? With the thing on my head, you know, like the bow. Fuck you.
That is fire.
Like Aunt Jemima.
That is fire. Wow.
And you know, you get to like see Cuba, you get to understand the history of it all. Yeah, some Aunt Jemima stuff. I think you understand what you're doing, you know, so spiritual math. Wait, getting my Aunt Jemima right now. Let me see. You know, and so this is like the Catholic Church. I think that's was it Aunt Jemima? So you get to see like the different saints that they like had to pretend. And then look at that. Who is that? Who is that? Who do you think that is?
Is that Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I see it holding a baby. Okay, I can see it now.
What color is she?
Pure black.
But I don't know what this. I don't know why Jesus light skinned, but you know what I'm saying.
Straight up. That baby right there, pure black.
And then I guess he was light skinned, you know. Then he up there like that. You know what I'm saying. What do I look like? Don't like the African still walking?
That is crazy. Dang, that's crazy.
You see how, like, you know, and they're just sitting there. I don't know why SpongeBob is there, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so they're still like showing their the tradition, you know, it all.
Right.
You know, and this was like the last dinner I had before I like ended up leaving. And my madrinas we all got together. This is their goodbye to me. You know what I'm saying goodbye. Yeah. So part of my Ita was also that my daughter had to get her hand of Ifa. So just to get an idea of the hand of Ifa, you know. So this is what happens. You get your hand of Ifa and you talk to the Babalawo. This is the Babalawo. You know, and he pitch black. You know what I'm saying? And may he rest in peace, Baba Oreste. My favorite coon.
He transitioned.
He passed away. But he was able to give both of my children their hand to Ifa before he passed.
Wow.
You know? And this is what, you know, and that's the blessing. You know, she's sitting in her little Mickey Mouse chair, getting like her little, you know. Yep, and so that was her little hand to be my ceremony. But yeah, that's kind of like, you know, like the tradition that I'm in right now. Most recently, I got my Oba Kun. You know, shouts out to Baba Oba, Brother Oba, who was the person that you've been hearing this whole time. You know, and this is the first time I actually got to hear everything in English. You know, being from America going into Cuba, you know, everybody speaks Spanish. I'm not understanding everything that's going on. But just like he was talking in that situation, imagine some of the information you get to hear in these ceremonies, you know?
Right.
These
From the elders.
Are people that have like a plethora of knowledge, you know? And so that is really the tradition right there, you know? And so like me just giving it back to the ancestors, me just understanding the importance, you know. I've got my child is now like, you know, beginning her walk, you know. So are there any questions?
Yeah, definitely. It was some things that the brother had when you went into recognizing your spiritual gifts. and he was talking about I can't think of the term that he used, but it was for the people who could see and also hear the spirits.
Yeah, clairvoyant or clairaudient. Yeah, I'm
Clairaudient.
I'm not clairvoyant. I'm clairaudient, and I do have dreams, and I also like have like the where I like feel certain stuff and don't so I have like 3 of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I have done divination before with playing cards. I haven't like learned how to do it within Ifa or in the Dilagoon, but I can like actually take out cards and read somebody. Like actual real like playing cards, you know.
Wow. Now that's fire. And you said actual playing cards or the tarot?
No, playing cards, like
like what we used to play spades with.
Yeah.
Okay, now how did you see that connection, or how did you get to that connection?
Raul-Oba is the owner of all divination, so like he's the head of all diviners. But how I learned how to do like the divination and playing cards is when I was in the military. It was a lady from I think she was either from Venezuela, but that's what's so weird is everything in my life kind of connected me to this moment, right? So she taught me how to like do readings with cards, and then she taught me how to. She took a cigarette, and she was able to take the cigarette and blow it out a certain way, and it would carve in the name of a person I was that I was with at the time. Like I don't know what she did, but she was like, okay, let's see who you're supposed to be with, and it gave the name, the letter, the actual letter of that person's name.
Okay. And so
yeah, I think she was Mexican, but yeah, like so I was already like learning that stuff in the military. A lot of the stuff, like it's interesting, like how even the military kind of like drove me in this way, you know?
Okay. That's fire. So and just so I'm clear, so when we look at so how many cards come in a deck for tarot?
I don't know. I never did tarot. I bought a deck, but I never really could get into it, you know?
Right.
But it never was something for me.
But we can see that basically what you're saying, we can definitely see that playing cards come from tarot, right?
Well, I don't know. I just know that the hearts equal love. The spade is like kind of like issues, like
right.
The diamonds, money, and like I think the clubs is like friendship or something like that, or like a person that's like a friend, and and then you put the 4 kings up at the top, and you're able to like or queens. And I'm able to like tell you about those 4 different guys or people, women that you're involved with. And then she taught me how to do a spread where I could actually read a person's like history through the spread based on the understanding of the cards.
Okay.
But I haven't done it in a while. But I mean, honey, I predicted people getting married and all type of stuff. Back when I was doing it, and I really didn't even know what I was doing. I just was doing it.
Now that's fire.
It was like
something that's just kind of came natural to you.
Yeah, I would like pull that trick out of the party, like, hey, I could do some reading, you know what I'm saying, and pull it out and predicted the whole marriage and everything with that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
wow. Now that is fire. And so even some of the supernatural experiences that you was talking about that would come through. So these are experiences basically that how could I say it? These are so the reason why some of the supernatural things like being able to eat glass, being able to be on fire without be getting burned. I think it was also being able to slice themselves without having cuts, with the knives and the swords and things. So these things come. The reason why they're not being cut is because the actual person isn't doing it, is actually the spirit.
Yeah, it's a spirit. It's a spirit. Yeah.
So it almost acts as a covering. Well, to me, I wouldn't even say acts as a covering. It's almost like it's evidence of the covering that you have.
Well, a lot of times it's the drumming. You know what I'm saying? The drumming. So I'm gonna play this one last thing because I know I've been playing a lot of different videos, but I wanted to just okay. Let me go into it real quick.
Okay. You got it queued.
It's a traditional spiritual system of the Yoruba people of Nigeria.
Ifa is an African traditional way of life. Some may call it a spirituality, some may call it a religion, but it's a way of harmonizing ourselves with the world around us, the universe around us, so that we can flow through this life.
Ifa is the study or the observation of life. When you study and observe life, you begin to recognize things about yourself, others, your community. It's countless revelations. Ifa is a way that we focus that intent, focus that observation.
Ifa is a way of life. And through that, we study a way of life through the deities of nature that are explained through nature. And in Ifa, we believe in one God. And we believe those aspects of God are carried out or explained through forces of nature. So those are just extensions of God, rather than we don't pray to the rain, or we don't pray to the rocks. We pray to that force of life that is through God, through those things that are living. But the practice and the traditions is just a way of life. It's just how we communicate with the Creator and our surroundings and our ancestors.
Our ancestors then are our link to divinity. They are our link to divinity. That's the best way to explain it, that we are praising our ancestors because also what they provide for us is a divine record of consciousness of our family. They are the divine internet. If we are trying to draw on our own personal files within the memory of our own computer, then our access to information is limited. If we take that same computer and connect to the internet, a whole different thing happens. It's the same computer, but now it's connected to the internet. The analogy is that we are the computer. That if we try to rely on our own brain to come up with all the answers that we are dealing with on a daily basis, especially in a world of oppression like this, in a world of unfairness like this, in a world of injustice like this, in a world where we see things being destroyed that we care about, then we are indeed lost, because all we have is our one lifetime. When we draw upon the lifetimes of our ancestors, it's like our computer is now connected to the divine internet. And once we connect to that internet, then we have answers that extend across lifetimes. We begin to see patterns in our family. We begin to understand patterns of our resistance in the family. We begin to understand the things that the ancestors did and why.
We honor our ancestors. First and foremost, ancestors are the foundation. And an Egun Joko is a ceremony that helps us to communicate and honor and give thanks to the ancestors. Egun is the Yoruba word for ancestor. And Joko means to come sit.
Come sit, okay.
Yes, so Egun Joko, come sit. We invite the ancestors to come sit with us. We make offerings, we say prayers, we make requests. And then the ancestors give us the messages. And the messages that we get, we know are from them because we have appealed to them to come.
Ori, O means he, she, or it. Re means to see. When we look at our head, we can see that our head is a site of all of our senses. We hear from our head. We see from our head. We smell from our head. We taste from our head. We touch. We think of touch being here. But all too often, we can actually pick up something that's not hot enough to burn our hands, but yet we can burn our mouth with it. So I say, touch is most sensitive here as well. You see what I'm saying? So that puts all five of our senses as having their strongest locations within our head. Ori is the convergence because of that sensory region, but also the sensory apparatus. It allows the energy of the spirit to enter. It allows the energy of the heart to enter. It allows the energy of the body, of the mind to be a part of the process, so that all of that is taking place inside of physically or metaphysically the head. So that's what we call the Ori, that place where the mind, spirit, and heart meets. Orisha. Yeah, Ori again means the head. Sha means to own. Yeah, so the owner of the head. Each elemental force within the universe, and there's 7 primary that we kind of lean to in the New World. Those forces are capable at the child's birth of connecting to that child because they understand that child's path. And they, in principle, are connecting to that child. The principle is connecting to a personality. so it can manifest itself down on this plane to make the will of God be known and happen here on this plane. Those Orisha are selecting their child. And because that child is choosing his destiny, in a sense, it's also selecting that Orisha. So that Orisha is a selected head. That child is a head that's been selected. So there's a selected head relationship that goes on between those two.
Orishas are, like I said, the forces of nature. In Voodoo, they're called the Loa. In the Kemetic system, they are the Netters. They are functions of God. They are the messengers. They are the forces of nature.
Eshu, Ogun, and Ochosi, which in simpler terms are called the warriors of Ifa. Why that? They open up the way for you. Okay. Those are the ones that when your life, they go to bat for you to make your life better.
I don't know if you are familiar with the revolution in Haiti, the story of Toussaint Louverture. And it's reputed that he first went to Egun to help the fight to overthrow the French, and Egun refused. So he went to Gede, which is Ilegba, and Ilegba agreed to help, and they made the right sacrifice. But the switch is that they gained their independence, but the French were so mad that they kept them impoverished. So maybe someone didn't do the full sacrifice. I don't know.
Exactly.
Because that was the same thing we had done in Rome, to create this syncretism, you know, because what had happened was that we could not openly and overtly practice African religion. When we began to understand Christianity, that's one of the things I think people don't give us credit for. We did not hear the stories of all the miracles that we heard from Christianity for the first time. The raising of the dead is nothing new in Africa. You know, the divine or miraculous birth is nothing new in Africa. You know, so with that, when these things were brought to us in Portuguese, in English, in French, in Spanish for the first time, we were not hearing them for the first time. We were hearing them in those colonial languages under those auspices.
Understand.
And so it's easy for us to become very good Christians in that sense, because now we needed it for our survival. So outwardly, as we would say in New Orleans, we're 90% Catholic and 110% Voodoo. Music is very important in Ifa for the simple reason that we know music is vibrations. The vibrations are wavelengths. Wavelengths are capable of changing human consciousness. We already know that when we measure a person's brain waves, we can determine alpha, beta, and all the different signatures of brain waves is oscillations. When we look at a rhythm, we actually know that too is an oscillation. When we look at the colors of the Orisha, assigned to the Orisha, each color is a wavelength. Each wavelength of color carries its own oscillation. So what we're doing in music is actually creating sonic colors. We're actually creating sonic colors that affect the 7 energy centers of the human body. When we affect those 7 energy centers, we're able of moving that energy around, so an instant level or instantaneous level of super consciousness can find itself an open door in that person. And we find what's sometimes called possession. And in that person is capable of doing things that they do not do. To hold a knife and put it against your hand and not cut yourself. To hold fire and not burn yourself. To heal a person because you've touched them. These are things that a human being is not normally capable of doing, rather than when there's a super consciousness that has replaced that personality with a greater personality, because this door has been opened, this gateway through which this energy has flowed, because music has opened the doorway to create that sonic vibration for that energy to ride down on, because music creates a semi-solid mass. You understand? It's like this stuff is ethereal around us all the time, but music creates a semi-solid mass that becomes kind of a worm, but not even a kind of, it is a wormhole into other dimensions, into those places, into the divinosphere, into the levels of life that we're not aware of around us, for it to be pulled through. When it pulls through, miracles happen.
It is a cultural adaptation for any human being, any person. So there are things that you must adapt to culturally, but it is not exclusive. It's for human beings.
It's for humanity.
It's for humanity.
It's not for
Africans. No.
It's a way of life for humanity.
Humanity. Yeah. It's just that it's the African contribution that I say would fall along the lines of Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, things that have an intense scientific study, an intense livity, a way that you live, and scientific and medicinal practices. It's the scientific practices that have proven results. Ifa fits all that. So where a lot of the things that folks bring to the table, many religions around the world, they haven't done those 3 requirements. And then we have that last but not least, it's thousands upon thousands of years old. So it's being offered to us out of antiquity. Now, that's also something that can give folks an understand that they don't have to take it as a one-dimensional thing. They can look and look and look and will always find more and more and more.
Now, once he dedicates his time and his allegiance to Illumina, once he dedicates his time and his
All right, so the next thing I'm going to show is about Ifa and the Babalawo. What the Babalawo is to both Ilukumi, Isheshe, and I guess after that we can probably like wrap, or if there's questions there. But I want to like go into this too because people say, okay, what is the Babalawo? Okay, so I want to like actually get into that. Okay, so let's go back a little bit further, and here we go.
The Babalawo, if he has made Oshun, he becomes Oluo. Now, once he dedicates his time and his allegiance to Illumina, the Orisha take a backseat. His job is to deal directly with a ruler, and that's it. So no, he doesn't deal out beads, except for a ruler's bead and a ruler's dead. Right? In certain circumstances, in Cuban Ifa or the Creole Ifa, certain Orishas that the Babalawo has a monopoly on that he might give you an eleki for that. There's something okay, Oduduwa, Oshun, different little things or different Odus have certain elekes. You understand? Now, the African niggas have no right to give out elekes because it's not their custom. It's not their custom. In Africa, there is no ceremony where they receive 5 elekes and get it back. None. Because them niggas are one Orisha per locale. Right? So Yemonja rules here, and all the Yemonjas auxiliary Orishas, and that's it. Anything that's related to Yemonja, yeah, they might have some Shango, maybe some Babalawo, but you talking about some Oshun or some other shit, they ain't got that. Because that's not their fucking thing. This idea of just giving the 5, right, is the idea that it goes into the fact that the African is different after slavery because he has more access to ethereal information from a different perspective. He understands things differently. He's not isolated within his own theology, you understand? He's got a different perspective to see how his shit works in contrast to other perspectives. So in Oshun now, they have 4 colors: white, red, blue, yellow. In Africa, they only have white and red. That's it. The white, red, blue, yellow comes by way of niggas having information and seeing the world from a different perspective and understanding the 4 primary colors. Those 4 primary colors make all other colors. Yes. You know that. Right? So understanding that they advance themselves based on their environment. So the problem is the Babalawos be trying to insert themselves as some kind of bishops. Now, historically, let's talk for a minute. We got contempt for them niggas because they sold us the fuck over. How do we know that? Because if your fucking divination system is that good, you didn't see the white boy coming. How is it that y'all niggas didn't show up in Brazil? How is it that y'all didn't show up in Cuba until 150 years after niggas had already established themselves? Because they didn't get picked up because them niggas was originally the ones who sold us over there. So what about that? No, not originally. Originally, they weren't captured. They were a part of the political upheaval that was going on. So there's an issue that in Cuba, so in Creole systems, we don't use gin because gin is a part of what they sold us over. We use rum. Because it was gin, because the Africans will tell you, oh, tea is gin, but they're fucking lying because juniper berries don't grow in Africa. Fuck you, you stupid motherfucker. Who the fuck you think you talking to? Juniper berries don't grow in Africa. It's not your fucking liquor. So that means that when the niggas came and sold to you, you niggas drank that shit, you got stupid and you sold it to people. That's why I always don't take that shit. Niggas go, you gotta put gin on the label. Now, my label, we don't recognize that shit. That's the shit, the bounty that sold us for. Right? Okay. So, understanding that these niggas sold us over here, they didn't show up till late. And it wasn't until they got betrayed.
All right, did you hear what he said though?
You speaking live or in the video?
No, do you hear what he said though? In the video.
Yeah.
The Babalawos were the one that sold us, and the bounty was gin. That's why all Orishas in Cuba do not use gin
They
bless
use the they use the rum. Mm-hmm.
because that was the bounty. Okay, so let's go.
Right? And part of it has to do with economics. You have to understand. See, because they might be talking about slavery and all this shit without understanding historical politics. Shit changes based on the commodity. During the colonial expansion, the white women that came to the New World were miserable. So you think about South America, Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, it's hot as fuck. The white women are sweating like fucking dogs. So they need cascarilla. Put one there, this is where they get the white faces in the colonial pictures. Right? Go powder her face. Because the people who propagated the tradition that we follow, that was their expertise. They were fucking proficient in making fucking makeup. So they took the niggas. That's how they end up. Right? So what happens is, when the currency changes based on the falling of governments, right? Okay, so there's a whole lot of shit that all these stinking motherfuckers that go to college for all these fucking years are fucking retarded. What's the first currency? What's the first currency? You know what the first currency is? Salt. After salt comes corn. By the time you get the grain, the West Africans have figured out some sort of fucking thing. What is it? Cowrie shells. Cowrie shells are the oldest currency in the world. So much so that the Chinese, when they started to make coins, they call them brown cowries. They're holding the motherfuckers for that reason. Okay. So with that just being said, tell me how the fuck Egypt is the fucking first fucking civilization and them niggas is using coins.
Bro. So
That's a cut.
Okay. Bro, so did you say bro, or was it like a question, or?
Fucking makeup. So they took the niggas. That's how they end up. Right? So what happens is, when the currency changes based on the falling of governments, right? Okay, so there's a whole lot. No, not originally. Originally, they weren't captured. They were a part of the political upheaval that was going on. So there's an issue that in Cuba,
Lukumi, Isheshen, and I guess after that we can probably
It's for human beings.
let's go back a little.
a different perspective to see how his shit works in contrast to other perspectives. So in Ocha now they have 4 colors: white, red, blue, yellow. In Africa they only have white and red. That's the white, red, blue, yellow comes by way of niggas having information and seeing the world from a different perspective and understanding the 4 primary colors. Those 4 primary colors make all other colors. Yes, you know that, right? So understanding that they advance themselves based on their environment. So the problem is the Babalawos be trying to insert themselves as some kind of bishops. Now, historically, let's talk for a minute. We got contempt for the niggas, but they sold us the fuck over. How do we know that? Because if your fucking divination system is that good, you didn't see the white boy coming. How is it that y'all niggas didn't show up in Brazil? How is it that y'all didn't show up in Cuba until 150 years after niggas had already established themselves? Because they didn't get picked up because them niggas was originally the ones who sold us over. No, not originally. Originally, they weren't captured. They were a part of the political upheaval that was going on. So there's an issue that in Cuba, so in Creole systems, we don't use gin because gin is a part of what they sold us over. We use rum because it was gin, because the Africans will tell you, oh, tea is gin, but they're fucking lying because juniper berries don't grow in Africa. Fuck you, you stupid motherfucker. Who the fuck you think you talking to? Jennifer Berries don't go in Africa. Snatch your fucking liquor. So that means that when the niggas came and sold it to you, you niggas drank that shit, you got stupid and you sold it to people. That's why I Oshun don't take that shit. Niggas go, oh, you gotta put gin on the label. Now my label, we don't recognize that shit. That shit is what, that's the shit, the bounty that sold us for. Right? Okay. So understanding that these niggas sold us over here, they didn't show up till late. And it wasn't until they got betrayed. Man, and part of it has to do with economics. You have to understand. See, because everybody talk about slavery and all this shit without understanding historical politics. Shit changes based on the commodity. During the colonial expansion, the white women that came to the New World were miserable. So you think about South America, Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, it's hot as fuck. The white women are sweating like fucking dogs. So they need cascarilla. Put one there, this is where they get the white faces in the colonial pictures, right? Go powder her face. Because the people who propagated the tradition that we follow, that was their expertise. They were fucking proficient in making fucking makeup. So they took the niggas. That's how they end up. Right? So what happens is, when the currency changes based on the falling of governments, right? Okay, so there's a whole lot of shit that all these stinking motherfuckers that go to college for all these fucking years are fucking retarded. What's the first currency? What's the first currency? You know what the first currency is? Salt. After salt comes corn. By the time you get the grain, the West Africans have figured out some sort of fucking thing. What is it? Cowrie shells. Cowrie shells are the oldest currency in the world. So much so that the Chinese, when they started to make coins, they call them brown cowries. They hold them motherfuckers for that reason. Okay. So with that just being said, tell me how the fuck Egypt is the fucking first fucking civilization and them niggas is using coins.
Bro. So
That's a cut.
Okay. Bro, so imagine like you're in a initiation and this guy's talking and giving this information. You don't even and honestly, like this is the stuff they be telling you during your initiation, stuff like this. The history of it, you know? Please go and check out what's this thing? It's called look up Bro Oba. Okay, I'm gonna put Brother Oba. If you guys are interested in this religion, look up Brother Oba. Okay, and then you'll see this thing. Omidina. Go check it out. But I'm gonna continue to play this one. But like, this is the only part that you might miss during if you go to Cuba, because they're all speaking in Spanish. This is the way that they talk. The Oriate, right. The Babalawos. They're giving secret. They're giving the information. They're giving the history of it all. You know what I'm saying? They talk to each other about what's going on in the world. This right. And that. Right? So that is, so people will say, I don't need to be initiated. I can self-initiate. No, you don't want to self-initiate. You're missing the community aspect. You're missing the community. You're missing right. The information that you get told when you go to these things, the things that you probably wouldn't even think of.
Right. And I think that goes also into Ubuntu.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, whenever you get these initiations, you are getting to hear from people like this that have history, that are like you don't just become an Oba like in 5 years. This takes years to develop, and
right.
And imagine how much information. And these people are like the libraries of information in our faith, right? The Oba, right? Oba Oriate, master of ceremonies. So not only does he know how to conduct the ceremonies, he knows all the songs. He knows all the Patrickese. He knows the history.
Right, right.
And you're getting taught the history. You're getting taught all this stuff. So it's a blessing to have a person like this that's still alive to be able to tell the history and understand that. He was one of the first Oba. He was around when in the 60s when this whole thing. His mother was one of the first people that was over in America when it first came here. So he knows all the people. He knows how it got here. He knows everything when it comes down to this religion, you know? So
Right.
let's go.
Where do we at that, man? Tell me how that happened. All you scholars with all these PhDs, how the fuck did you say that stupid shit and them niggas using coins?
So what he's asking here, he says that if Kemet was the main civilization, right?
Right.
Then why was they using corn as their way of like
The way of life. And see, I like a lot of what the brother's saying, because I mean, a lot of what the brother's saying is what we be teaching over here on the dark side.
Yeah.
One of the things that we teach is that Kemet is the
thing.
But Kemet cannot be the main thing.
When Nigeria, they were using Cowrie. They've been past this whole situation.
That's how we know.
Kemet cannot be the whole thing. Africa is a continent. Kemet is nothing but ancient Egypt. It's a whole entire continent. So of course, Egypt cannot be the main thing or the only practices. You got how many countries in Africa? Egypt was only one. I don't know why we adapt to all the Egyptology and all of that. I don't understand that part, but it's other things, all different tribes in Africa,
Right.
and they spread it out. So I don't know where they get everything is like Hotep this and Hotep that. I'm like, no, that's one of many.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's what he's talking about here. Is like if Nigeria was using cowrie shells and Egypt was using corn, who was the first one? Because they were already advanced before Egypt. So there we go. So let's go to it. Period. It was a whole like a castle and all type of stuff going. It was like they had stuff. It was built up. It wasn't like they just walked up on people like in teepee huts and sitting up there. You know what I mean? These people had like a civilization there. It was civilization there, even beyond Egypt. And some of these people came from Egypt into Iyanifa.
Right. Scholars with all these PhDs, how the fuck did you say that stupid shit and them niggas using coins?
Let me go back. So and one thing about the Obas and like the people that's in the list, they are hostile, but they're not hostile, but they, you know what I'm saying? They be going in. You know what I'm saying? They don't play.
Just passionate. They passionate about it.
They goes in. You be careful about what you say. You gotta be quiet and just listen. You just listen and don't say shit. So trust me. You don't want to like get cussed out. So so go ahead.
All you scholars with all these PhDs, how the fuck did you say that stupid shit and them niggas using coins?
You heard Raul-Oba?
Who?
Raul-Oba.
Who's that?
He's South African man. My dad.
You got like a headdress on?
Nah, I don't know if he's the headdress on, but he said he might just pass away in his mom. But he said Egypt is baby.
It is.
That's
My nigga, I did a fucking lecture 12 years ago called Congo before Kenya. Niggas told me, what the fuck is he talking about? Huh? Again, you can't tell me this if you fucking got a brain that works, my nigga. You telling me that the first currency is a cowrie shell, but these niggas got fucking coins. How are they the first fucking civilization? Riddle me that. Can't be right. They still haven't told you that the reason that you read and write has nothing to do with history. Did you know that? Let me break it down for you. So, you said salt was the first currency, right? Your weight in salt, your worth your weight in salt, as they said. This is from a hunter-gatherer society. Because if you catch some shit, you put salt on it, it can stay longer. And you got to hunt them, right? Okay. Then corn becomes the next one. So they keep trying to say that corn originated over here. That's just nice, whatever. But they got pictures of corn in Africa. Okay. So now corn is antiquated. I give you 5 kernels. Right? But then when grain comes along, there's a problem. because it's not antiquated. I can't give you 5 fucking kernels of rice. So now we have to weigh it. In weighing it, we have to keep record. This is where writing and arithmetic comes in. This is why to this day the Jews' fucking alphabet is associated to fucking numbers. It's numerical because it is about fucking commerce and the record keeping in commerce. It has nothing to do with writing history. Nobody had time to be writing the history. What are you talking about? No, I got it. Because in legalese, there is no interpretation. My nigga, I gave you 5 oranges. You owe me 5 oranges. I don't want to hear that you felt like 4. It felt like 3. Nigga, I gave you 5. That's what's on the fucking paper. Pay me my shit. Right? There's no interpretation there. They didn't think that to you. They still got niggas thinking that the world was written so that they could write the Bible. Understand? These are concepts that go over niggas' heads that niggas ain't figured out yet. Like, what are these niggas talking about? And so, my thing is, you got people trying to make a measurement of all of this when they don't even have a true understanding of history. Scientists said, you need to get it twisted. Every time there's a great fucking civilization, you think that the whole world has gotten to that level. Remember, right now, there's still hunter-gatherers that's operating in the world right now, as much technology we have right now. So when Egypt was happening, there was still some niggas like, man, fuck that stupid shit. They got more hungry. Because they could see the ills of all of the societal shit. This is where disease is born. All of the fucking errant behaviors of human beings are born within large cities. They're not born in clans. That shit is eradicated immediately out in the jungle. What the fuck is this nigga say? Yo, my nigga, you keep fucking with his wife, we're gonna kill you before he kills you. Because this is why when you talk about values and morals, but all your morality is based on your mortality, period. It's not good to kill another person because we need people for the tribe so that we can build up a motherfucking wall. It's not cool to fuck with that nigga's wife because he's gonna want to fight and then y'all gonna get into some gangster shit and there's gonna be less people. Right? All these things are based on keeping order so that there's some type of peace amongst each other and everybody's cooperating, right? Okay.
Killing you, small.
So go ahead and like check that out. Go get it.
Beyoncé released a new single this past Friday on Juneteenth, and it's called Black Parade. The lyrics, let me tell you, wow.
With references to Yoruban deities like Oshun and Yamaya, it was clear that
Beyonce is pushing way more than Black Lives Matter ideology here.
some people celebrated it, seeing it as overturning 400 years of repression of the Yoruban faith.
This makes me feel bad as hell.
Slaves brought the Yoruban faith over from Africa, but in the New World, their beliefs were labeled satanic, demonic, and primitive, and driven underground.
Beyonce was outright like, Oshun, yeah, my ya. You heard me? Yeah, my ya. It was just nice hearing someone just being upfront with it and not trying to hide it.
But not everybody was happy with the song, including many in the Black community, Black Christians in particular.
Beyonce, I'm so disappointed in you, honey. Using your influence to associate authentic Blackness with magic is just wrong. Why do I need witchcraft or African spirituality to feel Black when Christianity is equally as Black?
But this is not just about Beyonce. Beyonce is just one of millions finding strength and meaning in the Yoruban religion. By some counts, this is the 6th largest religion in the world, with as many as 100 million followers.
Growing numbers of African-American women in Maryland and across the nation are leaving traditional church worship. They are college-educated professional women who have chosen to believe that theirs is a truer example of worship.
I think you probably know this by now, but for me, all religions are inherently interesting. I love looking at the ideas that animate people and bring meaning to their lives. But the Yoruban religion is especially rich and full of wonders. I've only tapped the surface of the songs, the stories, chants, poems, and wisdom, and I am continually blown away by the richness of the tradition. In all of the religions I study, I always have this little voice in the back of my head saying, you know, they might be right. And when I study the Yoruba, I sometimes hear that voice just getting louder and louder. It's just that compelling and interesting. So what is it? Well, we could start with the Orishas. Ori meaning consciousness, Sha meaning protector. Different traditions have a different total number. Some have only 7, others have 401, some have 601, and some have 3,200. Regardless of the tradition, each Orisha is associated with some element of nature and has multiple associations with colors, stones, trees, emotions, major life events, basically everything in nature. As Stephen Prothero says so beautifully, they provide a map to every mountain and valley of human experience. And every moment and every space is permeated with spiritual power. Oludumare is the high god, whose name literally means the source of all creation that does not become empty. Awesome, I love that. He is omnipotent, transcendent, all-knowing, both good and evil. And as the source of energy, not he really, more like they, beyond all gender. And he's really beyond all human form. So Oludumare might be better imagined as something like this. But he did not create our world. There are several creation stories. In one of these, Oludumare needed to call upon the creative powers of Oshun, the river goddess, Orisha of sex, love, and fertility. And with the power of water, the rivers, she brought life into the world. But like the water, the life was formless. So it was left to Obatala to mold humans out of the earth. Now, this was great, but the humans complained. They said, there is nothing that is unequal among us. We are all the same language, same possessions. There is no variety in anything in our lives. Why are we all the same? So hearing this, Oludumare called on Eshu, the trickster, to make life more interesting. Eshu put on his special hat, red on one side, black on the other, that made him appear like a man dressed in red from one side and a man dressed in black on the other. Walking right in between people, the people on either side of him started arguing about who he was and what they were seeing. And this is the origin of all the multitude of differences we see today. One of the most interesting things about the Yoruban religion is that while many religions focus on the afterlife, it's really the pre-life that matters the most here. Probably my favorite part of the Yoruban religion. So I really geeked out on this, and I made this really elaborate PowerPoint. I'm going to show you. It's actually not just a PowerPoint, it's a full-on animation that I made in PowerPoint, which is pretty crazy. But I just really wanted to help you dive in and understand the Yoruban view of life and death and the pre-life and afterlife. So here's how it goes. Before you enter the world, your Ori, your divine spirit, comes before this trinity of Orishas. Along with Oludumare and Eshu is Arunmila, the god of wisdom and destiny. He is Eshu's opposite. He represents order, wisdom, and peace, while Eshu represents chaos, action, and power. Isn't this just the most awesome trinity? So when you come before the trinity, Oludumare will breathe life into you. Then you choose your destiny, your personality, your purpose, and even the day you will die. If you've ever seen the movie Soul, it's kind of like that. There's a pre-life of souls figuring out who they will be and looking for their spark. And though the creators of the movie have never said so, I think it's likely that they're borrowing quite a bit from Yoruban tradition here. So once you get your spark, your purpose, you start your life. Your Ori carries your destiny and your true life's purpose from the moment you were born. But we lose touch with our Ori and lose our spark. We get distracted by the demands of our day-to-day lives and lose our true purpose. The world around us is awash with spiritual power, and not all of it is good. Ajogun, these malevolent spirits, threaten us at every moment. The Orishas are all around us, in the water, the rocks, and in the heavens. They can help protect us, and more importantly, help us recover our destiny and true life's purpose. But somehow, we have to connect to them. So to connect to the Orishas, you can go to the Babalawo, a Yoruban priest or diviner who is a master of the Ifa tradition. The Babalawo begins by addressing your Ori directly and says, you know the mystery. He then turns to his divining tray, which embodies the wisdom of Arunmila and the Orishas, and says, you know the mystery. And then he says, with awesome humility, I know nothing. Because he's really just a medium. So using pine nuts or another divining device, one of 256 signatures is revealed. He then recounts the Odu that's associated with that signature. The Odu are these chants, songs, poems, and stories. The full collection of Odu is 4 times the size of the Bible, so this is a massive corpus. The Babalawo will recount at least 4 Odu, but it's ultimately up to you to decide which story or chant matters and why. They have this wonderful saying that the Ori is the greatest Orisha. Through divination, worship, and meditative veneration, you can reconnect with your Ori, find your spark, recover your destiny, and start living true to your life's true purpose. The powers of the universe will start to align in you. When you die, you do it all over again. Like Buddhism, they affirm the idea of reincarnation. And there are a lot of interesting parallels here with Buddhism. Not only do they both believe in reincarnation, but in Buddhism, we are constantly reincarnated onto the wheel of life that is full of suffering. Buddha points the way out through his 8-fold path of perfecting our souls through meditation and mindfulness to reach nirvana, a state of oneness with the creative energies of the world. In the same way, some Yoruban claim that we can eventually become one in spirit with Oludumare, the source of all creation. But also like Buddhism, most people don't have such lofty goals in their day-to-day life. Instead, they come to the Babalawo for practical matters. They want better health, more love, or just some more money. They are not aiming for the afterlife. They're just trying to live their best life here and now. And this rich world of meaning, where spirits and the power of Ashe are all around, is the very fabric of their lives. So let's look at some real imagery now. So here's a Babalawo using pine nuts for divination. He tries to scoop them from one hand to another, and the number of pine nuts remaining tells him what to write in the sand. When he's done, he'll have the signature for the Odu. Now these Odu are not just meaningful, they are beautiful as well.
The ordinary Yoruba patronizes the Ifa priests not only because of the belief, predictions, and pronouncements of Ifa, but also because of the aesthetic enjoyment which they derive from listening. to the chanting of a form of poetry which is exceedingly rich in style and language.
He will then recommend that a gift be given to your Orisha. So if you're trying to connect with Obatala, whose color is white, he might recommend a white chicken. But to deliver the gift, you need the help of Oshun. So you'll also need to throw in a bit of the tobacco for him as well.
The portion is offered to Eshu, the male counterpart of Oshun, and placed in a secret place beneath the stairs of this Fulton home.
This is sometimes called sacrifice.
11 people were charged with cruelty to livestock animals after Bexar County deputies were called out to a ritual involving animal sacrifices.
The only one that can complain about cruelty to animals is a vegan because we're killing animals.
The group sacrificed a goat, 3 roosters, a pigeon, and some chickens, and had other animals ready. After ceremonies like this, Talamantes has said they've cut the sacrificed animals up to cook up and eat in a ceremonial meal. They say some of that was already happening. The mistake in their eyes wasn't the sacrifices. It was leaving the garage door open for the neighborhood to see.
I don't know, it just kind of has like this bad tinge to it, so just think of it as a gift to the Orisha. Today, many Yoruba are establishing houses of worship that look a lot like a Christian church. They listen to sermons, they pray, and they sing songs that celebrate their culture and identity. They also do dances that call forth the powers of the Orisha.
The special Ifa dance steps with delightful variations are executed to the traditional Ifa music. The songs in the special Ifa tunes and melodies treat various subjects: praise of Ifa, gratitude for blessings, demand for favors, the joy of being a devotee, and assurance of continuity.
This is a form of spirit possession. And combined with the animal sacrifices, many Christian leaders see these rituals and ideas as demonic and satanic.
The fact that young people are moving towards traditional African spirituality, leaving the church, why are you concerned about this?
These people, they ought not to go back to what they have left or what their fathers have left. In the name of Jesus! Christianity brought a clear civilization, spiritually and physically. African spirituality is the same as Satanism or demonism.
But the people they're leading, the people in their congregations, often still see these diviners and practice at least some aspects of Yoruban religion. This is one of many spiritual battlegrounds in the world. And like all spiritual battlegrounds, it is of cosmic proportions. On the one hand, we have Christian leaders who are fearing for their souls and want to save them. On the other are millions of Africans who are fighting to hold on to their traditions.
Ifa was sent by God Olodumare to use his wisdom to administer the world. The society was peaceful in those days when people followed Ifa's directives. Foreign religions, Islam and Christianity, however, came and waged war against Ifa. But we do not wage war against any religion.
The cultural heritage being displayed here is very, very encouraging. It reminds me about our ancestors, the things that was left behind for us. But the Christianity want to destroy it.
From its origins in West Africa, this faith survived the Middle Passage and is being adopted and adapted by some Black Americans who find within it strength, power, and meaning.
To learn about our history and learn about traditions that put us on a pedestal, and I see people so quick to demonize it. It worries me for the future of, our people as a whole and the world.
I do call myself Oshun the Great in honor of Oshun, and I dye my hair in honor of Oshun.
You can tap into her energy because we can easily tap into different Orisha's energies.
I'm going to be speaking about Oshun and how she could actually help balance our solar plexus.
I hope you enjoy learning about the Yoruban tradition as much as I have. It's just one more window into another way of seeing and being in the world. And
wife, and he had a captive. All the women.
Hey, could you hear that audio at all? Are you there? Okay. So I was just trying to okay, here we go. So I'm gonna let this one last video play, and I'm gonna leave it at that. But I thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys so much.
Stones at the house of the Sultan. So the sounds of the stones started making noise. They sounded like thunder. But the Sultan came out. And when he came out, he saw that the cliff was gone. And they told him that Oturamedi had made a bow for him with Momodu. And they got rid of the dinosaur and they got rid of the shadow. He said, well, he needed the divine to find out why the women weren't having children. And so they divined. So they asked the Sultan, where was his lieutenant, his second in command? He said to watch him. So that night, they followed the lieutenant and he went in the cave where the dinosaur was staying. And when they found him, when they went behind in there with him, they found him with the Sultan's wife. And so they captured him and they beheaded him. And so because the second in command was covered in the Sultan's wife and he had a captive, all the women were cursed. So when the Sultan got his wife back, when the first child that they gave birth, it was a girl. And they gave the name Ifatuma because Ifa gave him. And so that became Fatima, right? And so the custom of throwing the stones came from them waking up the Sultan. Okay. Then in Ofun Obe, Nana Buruku was the mother to the people that lived in the desert, and she was dying. And so they came to find out what they could do for their mother, and they divined for her, and Ofun Bay came out. And they said that they should spend their money to feed their mother to get her healthy. But the eldest of her children said, for what reason? She's old already. We would just be wasting our time and our money. He said, let's let her die. And so they decided that they would starve her. So they started to feed her gruel every day. Every time they fed her the soup, she didn't want the soup. She refused to eat it. And every day she did that, she scratched a line on the wall. Till the day came when she was on her deathbed. And so she called her children and they came to get her blessings. And she told them to count the scratches on the wall. She said, for every day that I starve, you'll starve now in honor of me to get my blessings. And the Ramadan was born. That's why it's done around the moon with Nana Buruku, Fumbe. Feel me? That the Muslim has to starve because he starved his mother. You understand? So that's the custom of them. They worship a feminine deity. You understand? Okay. So that even the word for God in Jesus' language is Allah, because it comes from the Elohim, because it's Aramaic, right? So they got the Hebrew and then they got the Aramaic, and the Aramaic is Allah. Okay. And it has to do with a feminine cult. They worship feminine energy. You understand? Okay. Because they have to be conscious, of the woman's cycle by way of the moon so that they can procreate. Feel me? Okay. And so this is where they say that Islam is born in these Odus based on certain circumstances. You understand? Judaism is born in Ogunda Meiji. Christianity is born in Oyeku Meiji. In Christianity, they told Jesus Christ that he should feed Eshu. He said, for what? My nigga, I'm Jesus. They was like, my nigga, it's not gonna go well for you down there if you don't feed Eshu. He said, all right. And so they told him, they said, if you don't feed Eshu, your name gonna outlive your life. And then from that, his name would outlive his life.
Remember the time I showed you on Google that little Orisha statues and had Christ in the middle surrounding the Orishas that we do like the same Odu about?
You know, Yeko Meiji. And so in the Ogunda Meiji is where Judaism is born. That's where the circumcision is born. Circumcision is born in Ogunda. Feel me? That's the oath that they made with the blacksmith that marks them. You understand?
Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and just show you that how even modern day religion was born in the Odu. That Oyeku and Agunda and different actual stories in the Patakis talk about the religions that were born later on, because of course these Patakis existed way before Abrahamic religion. So yeah, so basically, thank you guys for like being here for this live, and thank you guys and peace out. Okay, so any comments, Sugar Love?
You just muted me. I said that was great information.
Oh no, I didn't mute you. I was trying to figure. There was a sound. I was trying to figure out where the sound. It was like doubling up, so I wasn't muting you on purpose. It was like doubling, like repeating itself. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I said that was great information and great history. And even though you know it, he put the content and the names there, and yeah, that was good. Really good. Really good. Great history lessons. Oh, great understanding of history lessons.
Okay, so you know what? That's pretty much the end of the what I did on that live stream. You're more than welcome to review it on your channel, but that was it. Hey.
When was it that you went down to Cuba?
About 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. 2 years removed. Oh, okay. Okay. Right. That was good. That was good. It's really good to go out there and to see more parts of the world and how they do stuff. So I really appreciate that.
What the hell was that? That's a song.
What?
Oh, okay. It was playing the song. So.
Oh, not here.
It must have been somebody else.
Yeah, not here.
But I really wanted to really bring this to the audience because people have been asking me questions about, okay, so how'd you even get into this? So and I wanted to show the common sense that really it boils down to. So, and there you go.
Yeah, because it's simple and people make it way more than it is. So this was the most simplest way you could do it for understanding. So that was good.
You didn't get to see the first part where I talked about my, my mother and things like that, how it happened, so I want you to probably go back into that, just watch that, because it's interesting how your parents can influence you a certain way,
Yeah.
All right. So that was pretty much it. So it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let it go at this point. Thank you, Sugar Love, for coming up and being with me during this live.
Oh, definitely. All right, you know how I usually go. Now, DJ, take us out of here.
Okay, hold on. How we gonna do? Which one we want to do? Let's see.
Whatever the take us out of here song is.
Okay.
DJ, take.
Who I am. I'm loving me. Look in the mirror. Unapologetically love what I see. Love who I am. I am invincible. I am a fan. My curves and my features, God makes no mistakes. I am successful. I am what it takes. I'm bulletproof. I'm 100 proof, and I love who I see because I'm living my truth. I'm invincible. I'm incredible. A star in the making. I reach past the clouds. I'm invincible. I'm incredible, and no one can stop me. Can stop me now. I'm invincible.